we think that we are in a position to say that this World Confluence is one of its kind, one of the most successful events which brings together core issues of humanity, of spirituality, and of power, power of the inner spirit, and power in a more conventional sense. Like every other year, we have a wonderful bouquet of speakers, a plethora of speakers from different disciplines who are going to speak on various issues relating to spirituality, to humanity, to power. And we would be at the end of the conference, at the end of the confluence, like every other year, we are going to be extremely enriched spirituality. That is our belief. So right at the outset, may I request Dr. Hari Prasad Kanoria, who is a truly versatile person, an industrialist, a banker, journalist, educationist, philanthropist, of course, and a social awakener with an extraordinary mission and vision of enhancing spiritual value and service to humanity. It goes without saying that it is his single-minded dedication, his sincerity, that is the one reason why this World Confluence of Humanity, Power and Spirituality is so successful. So it is over to Dr. Hari Prasad Kanoria, who is now going to welcome all our viewers all over the world. Dr. Kanoria.
Dear brothers and sisters, globally, welcome to the 14th World Confluence of Humanity, Power and Spirituality. On behalf of my family and myself, I wish you and your family a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I deeply express my gratitude to all the eminent speakers for their gracious presence to enlighten years. The deliverance will imbibe and ignite the spirituality in years. The universe is the manifestation of Universal Father. God is our Father, Mother, and friend. God was alone. He said, I am alone, let there be many. Eko ham bahushami. God has manifested, yes. God has manifested, yes, in his own image. We are unit of cosmic divine intelligence. We are perfect and divine. God is seated in our hearts of all beings. God is the force, wisdom, and intellect within us. Universe is unity with diversity. Lord Krishna has said to his disciple Arjuna in the battlefield of Mahabharata, the entire universe has been manifested from me. All beings are dependent on me, but I am not dependent on them. Maya tad viddam, I am seated in the hearts of all beings. Sarvas chaham, hridaya sanivishtu. A spirituality manifests divinity within years. It creates the international bondage, one family, one world. A spirituality infuses the elements of balance and happy living in the physical and mental state with all. Intellectual faculty and intuition are developed. Life is balanced. It is essential to a specialized life while living in the world and discharging the duty with devotion. Feel the presence of God in thoughts and action. He will guide our thoughts and action. We will overcome the storms of life with courage and joy. Spirituality give the depth of intelligence and intuition to cross the ocean of problem. God will conspire with a person who works righteously with years, with the true speed of the Almighty, without expectation of reward. God is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. God is everywhere and in everything. Truth, internal order, austerity. Internal order, austerity, simplicity, hard work. With devotion, humility, uphold Mother Earth to give us bounty to live a full span of life happily and united amidst diversity in grace, free from ego. The world is facing unprecedented, challenging time. We can only tide over this storm by building a power, a spiritual muscles and iron and nerves of steel. God never punishes us. We suffer for our past and present karma action. God has oceanic love for his children. He is very emphatic, pray in devotion for forgiveness, for committing any mistake knowingly or unknowingly. Having him in our consciousness, we can overcome all the obstacles of life and accede to success. Our whole beings tell us when we are doing wrong. Feel God voice. He is quiet when we do not listen to him. Constantly follow the inner voice of conscience, which is the voice of God. We tenaciously and cautiously courageous, fear nothing, except bad habits, bad companions, and weakness. Let us march ahead with firmness and determination, keeping high the flag of humility and spirituality to manifest the divinity, to overcome global hunger and global warming, to have harmony and peace, believing in the essence of all regions, in cosmic cooperation and coexistence. God calls all children, realize all in one, one in all, have faith in self, in all, and in God. Om, Amen, Amen, Ek Omkara, Aura Madha. Thanks all.
That was Dr. Hari Prasad Kanoria, the leading light of the confluence, whose single-minded dedication to the cause of spirituality is a spiritual awakener that has made this confluence continue over the years with greater and greater success. Now, all our viewers all over the world, let me give you an idea what is going to happen today. Our first speaker would be Steve Taylor. As we have mentioned that our speakers are resource persons, they come from different disciplines, they have different spheres of activity, different fields of specialization, but they are united by a unique perception of spirituality and a core sense of humanity. And Steve Taylor, who's going to open the 14th World Confluence, he's our opening speaker. He is no exception. He is a senior lecturer in psychology in Leeds Beckett University, and he is the author of several best-selling books on psychology and spirituality. So he approaches spirituality from the core area of psychology. He is a past chair of the transpersonal psychology section of the British Psychological Society. His new book, named Extraordinary Awakenings, When Trauma Leads to Transformation, and his other books include The Clear Light, Out of the Darkness, Back to Sanity, The Calm Center, The Leap, and Spiritual Science. So he has written these books which have found wide readership all over the world. And in fact, his books have been published in 20 languages, that is translated in 20 languages, while his articles, various articles in various journals and essays have been published in over more than 100 academic journals, magazines, and newspapers. He is also a very frequent media person in the United Kingdom and has been recently featured in Radio 4's The Moral Maze, BBC's Breakfast Show, Radio 5 Live, and Talk Radio. we would now be welcoming Steve Taylor. But let me also tell you that after Mr. Steve Taylor's presentation, we are going to have several more speakers. We would be having Sri Hemant Kanoria from our end. Then Mr. Liu Coutinho is going to answer various let's say, questions which are related to our confluence. So we have Dr. Eben Alexander, who would also be speaking today, and Bhuvan Lal, a well-known filmmaker, is also part of our the very distinguished panel who would be participating, and Srimad Swami Suparnanandaji Maharaj would also be participating. So we would just check once if Mr. Steve Taylor is ready. Since he would be joining us shortly, let us utilize this time by presenting to you a video which has been prepared by Dr. Eben Alexander. So we would have a quick look at this video, and then we are going to come back.
Hello, I'm Eben Alexander, former associate professor of neurosurgery at Harvard Medical School, and a near-death experiencer. And I think giving these two ingredients, having a week-long coma due to severe meningoencephalitis due to a bacterial infection in my brain back in November 2008, it's certainly given me a great reason to dive more deeply into an understanding of brain, mind, consciousness, and the nature of reality. And especially in this beautiful conference that is the 14th annual World Confluence on Humanity, Power, and Spirituality. It gives me a tremendous opportunity to share much of what I've learned over the years since my clinical in really cooperation with many leading scientists and thought leaders on the nature of consciousness around the world to help share this beautiful gift with the world. It's an important time for all of humanity because in many ways we're starting to pay a tremendous price for the false sense of separation that comes bundled with scientific materialism that pretends we're all separate objects as opposed to being unified as one. And the price we pay comes in the form of economic greed, corporate greed, and that includes military-industrial complex, tremendous problems with our fossil fuel industry and other industries that really ignore the plight of our planet with carbon dioxide buildup, climate change, global warming, all of these things, an existential threat to our existence. Yet I believe that the answers, that the way out from this dilemma is something that's becoming increasingly clear as we learn more about the nature of consciousness. In many ways, this is about a consolidation of spirituality and science, because in fact, in many ways, science is leading the way in this revolution. And yet, materialist science, science that I worshipped before my coma, and I do not use that term lightly, because materialist science is a faith-based religion that actually is not supported by the evidence, as well as some of the faith-based religions. But we'll get into that a little more shortly. The way all of this came to me was a tremendous gift. If you describe a near lethal case of bacterial meningoencephalitis as a gift. And yet, when I look back on it all, I can't consider it anything but. It's been a tremendous gift in my life, helping me to come to a deeper understanding of the nature of my relationship with the universe. And I think in many ways, all of us can learn similar lessons. We expand our minds more profoundly to incorporate these kind of lessons. The lessons I'm talking about hinge mainly in the world of near-death experiences. Although near-death experiences, or NDEs, have been around literally at least for 2,400 years, since the time when Plato wrote about the Armenian soldier killed in battle, who had a profound life review. came back after 10 days dead on the battlefield just before they lit up his funeral pyre, and said that when you die, your life dies. And not only that, you find the only important thing is how much love you were able to share with others. Now, coming from a Armenian soldier killed in battle 2,400 years ago, you could hear a similar story on the battlefields of the modern era. Afghanistan and Iraq are recent battles the United States has participated in, and you do hear similar stories from some of those who were facing death or nearly killed in those altercations. But likewise, NDEs have been reported in many different manner of experiences that involve illness or injury and approaching death very closely. Now, the good news is that the full story on this, we never expect complete proof of the afterlife from near-death experiences, because near-death experiencers are near-death. They do not die. And yet there's a tremendous amount of evidence, and this has recently all been consolidated in a beautiful set of essays sponsored by the Bigelow Institute. And to learn more, you can go to bigelowinstitute.org, read the 29 winning essays. In fact, if you just start with number 1 by Jeffrey Mishlove, you're already a tremendous amount of the way there. But the entire body of evidence presented in these 29 essays pretty much leaves the world now at a point where you realize that the afterlife and reincarnation are very real prospects of human existence. Even though modern scientific community cannot fully explain them to this point, the evidence makes it crystal clear that the universe in which we live is one in which an afterlife and reincarnation are absolutely real parts of it all. We're no longer at the point where materialist scientists can claim, well, they don't fit the theoretical model, therefore they're impossible. Because in fact, the empirical data supported in those 29 essays, sponsored by Robert Bigelow, go all the way in proving this reality. And in fact, the only argument moving forward from materialists to claim that death is the end of our conscious existence is that they must claim willful ignorance, and a fairly flagrant willful ignorance at that, given how easily the data has been presented in these winning essays. Now, this is, of course, a message I've been trying to deliver to the world ever since my own near-death experience in November of 2008. And that's where I think a tremendous amount of work has been done, certainly that I've noted in the 13 years since my own coma experience. The scientific community has expanded tremendously to a deeper understanding of the nature of this reality, even though we're a long way from understanding theoretical mechanisms. That's where I think the scientific community can be greatly benefited moving forward. So with that, I'd like to share very briefly what happened to me back during that coma week in November of 2008. First of all, to point out, in my NDE, I was amnesic. That's unusual. Most souls have some memory of their earthly existence before they go in. But for whatever reasons, NDEs are always tailored to the individual. And even though the similarities far outweigh the differences, in my mind, tie these extraordinary experiences together in a very powerful empirical data set, the fact that I was amnesic was actually crucial for some of the deepest lessons I was to learn from this. And in fact, if I had gone in and experienced the traditional NDE, say, for example, my adoptive father, the neurosurgeon who was so influential in my life, who passed over 4 years before my coma, if he had been there, I would have been a little more likely, in spite of a 1 in a billion diagnosis and a 1 in a billion recovery, to have labeled it all just wishful thinking. It's not that you see who you want to see on the way out. And that's why I think it was so important that this amnesia was part of my journey. And in fact, my guardian angel or spiritual guide turned out to be someone very near and dear to me in life, but someone who I did not know. And those who have read my book, Proof of Heaven, will understand fully that involved my adoption history. Being put up for adoption when I was 11 days old, and then wondering about my birth family all those years, and then finally meeting them 1 year before my coma. And of course, I heard more about them 8 years before my coma. And that's when I found out about that beautiful sister that I had lost from my birth family. But I knew nothing more about her until the very end as all this came together. That is what I explained in the book, Proof of Heaven. The extraordinary reality of my experience was forced into my awareness. Now, it turns out, getting back to my experience itself, it started in what I call the earthworm's eye view, primitive, coarse, unresponsive realm, like being a dirty cello, seemed to go forever, but it didn't. I was rescued by the slowly spinning white light. It came packaged as a perfect musical memory or melody, and that's what enabled me to usher up this portal or wormhole up into the Gateway Valley, this rich, ultra-real realm. That's where people really get it wrong. If you haven't had an NDE, you can't possibly imagine what they're like. And to think that they're kind of murky and dreamlike is a giant mistake. This life in the material world, these physical bodies, that's murky and dreamlike. The experience I had deep in coma was absolutely shockingly real, detailed, vibrant, and alive like no experience I've ever had. And when I came back and started reading the NDE literature, I realized that's a very common description. More than half of NDEs are described as ultra real. And that is why I think to find a driving mechanism, which currently I believe to be meditation, to help us engender these states will be one of the greatest gifts to humanity. You don't have to have an NDE to know all that I know about the afterlife and this elevated nature of consciousness, but you do have to take advantage of exploring your own consciousness. And this is where things like centering prayer, meditation, and of course, those who are familiar with my work will realize I use sacred acoustics. You can learn more at sacredacoustics.com. And full disclosure, that is co-founded by my partner and by the co-author of my third book, Living in a Mindful Universe. Her name is Karen Newell. I meditate an hour to a day using sacred acoustic stones. I found them to be extraordinarily powerful. But the reality is, in my coma journey, and I've returned to it many times through meditation, not just to recover memories, but actually to develop relationships with the beings, the guides, the various denizens of that realm. And so in that Gateway Valley, I was given the most essential message, which I think I was to bring back to this world for all. And it's a common message. You are deeply loved and cherished forever. You have nothing to fear. You are cared for. And I wish I'd explained it a little better in the book Proof of Heaven, where it appears, where I said you can do no wrong. In context, to explain that, it really means when you're in the light of that infinite, loving, healing God force of that realm, you realize there's only one true pathway forward, and that is to manifest love, compassion, kindness, acceptance, and mercy for self and all fellow beings. And the more we can stick closely to that agenda, the smoother our journey through all of these realms will be. And that includes our journey here in the material realm. In fact, the greatest lesson from near-death experiences is not what happens when I die, but how do I best live this life in the here and now? How do I view and treat myself and other beings with whom I'm in contact? And it's an extraordinary gift to realize that NDEs are basically teaching us the golden rule. I mean, there's no clearer example of the golden rule, that is, treat others as you would like to be treated, which is part of every major religious system, also of some non-religious ethical and moral systems. And in fact, when you study near-death experiences in a major way, you realize that the life review is a beautiful example of treat others as you would like to be treated. So many people who describe a life review describe it as experiencing major teaching points of our lives, but doing it in such a fashion that we feel the emotional impact on others around us who are influenced not only by our actions, but even by our thoughts. So the life review in many ways is a demonstration of the fiction of the boundaries of self. You know, when we live in these bodies, we have what we claim as our own mental experience, although the world of parapsychology is full of examples of non-local consciousness, of telepathy, of precognition, of remote viewing, of out-of-body experiences, presentiment, precognition, knowing the future, at least seconds to minutes in advance. And then, of course, you have distance healing and the power of prayer and healing self and others. And then, of course, that extraordinary body of literature, more than 6 decades now of data from the University of Virginia and other researchers around the world who have studied past life memories in children suggestive of reincarnation. In fact, when you review that literature, you realize reincarnation has to be real. It's occurred many, many times and been proven in well-documented cases. So we just need to accept that our souls come back again and again. In fact, the way I came away from my NDE was a realization that it's all about relationships, and that's why love, compassion, and kindness are so absolutely crucial. So in this journey, in this Gateway Valley, that beautiful angel on the butterfly wing gave me those loving lessons. And then angelic choirs above that were emanating chants and anthems and hymns that were fueling this incredible joy and merriment down below me, where I witnessed thousands of beings. That when I came back to this world and was writing up my memories, I said there were souls between lives. And all of that joy and merriment was being fueled because angelic choirs above in this Gateway Valley were emanating these chants and anthems and hymns that would just thunder through me with this incredible sense of awe and majesty and love and connection and a personal sense of belonging. It's our spiritual home. There really is nothing to fear whatsoever about that dying process as we come to realize we are eternal spiritual beings. Now, it turns out that those angelic choirs provided a portal to higher and higher levels. I remember ascending all the way out to what I call the core. And that ascension was all in a process of realizing that the 4-dimensional space-time of our material world collapsed down. And then that whole spiritual realm that I witnessed in the Gateway Valley with its ultra reality and this becoming of others, this knowledge through identification, this extraordinary mode of knowing, the same place where our life reviews occur, where we reunite with higher soul, with soulmates, and then plan next incarnations. All of that kind of thing would occur in that realm. And yet now I was ascending to higher and higher levels to experience pure oneness with that infinitely loving and healing divine force of God. I came back from all this realizing it doesn't matter if you want to call that God, Allah, Brahman, Vishnu, Jehovah, Yahweh, Great Spirit. All those are just linguistic terms that try to define and limit the deeper reality of the truth of that infinitely loving God force at the core of our very conscious awareness. This was an extreme revelation for me on my journey, having grown up in a Methodist church with a fairly conventional view of Christianity. To become one with God in such a profound fashion was something I never would have remotely considered for my religious beliefs. And likewise with reincarnation, that was never taught to me in my Methodist church. And yet the obvious nature of reincarnation was shown to me in two different forms, what I call the flying fish metaphor, and then there was the Indra's net metaphor. These two very powerful images that were shown to me deep in my coma experience in that core realm, in that realm of oneness with the resolution of all dualities, these visions of eternal souls going through multiple incarnations together, all in a process of growth and transformation. So it's not a concept of immortality or of reincarnation that is identical, for example, with some interpretations of Buddhism, because this is one filled with grace, with the knowledge that we are growing towards something. In many ways, I came to see it as the evolution of consciousness itself. Just as Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, the famous paleontologist, scientist, and French Jesuit priest, wrote a book called The Phenomenon of Man in the mid-20th century, in which he made it clear that evolution was indeed happening, but not just some limited little puny form of evolution of biological selection on Earth, but that all of consciousness was evolving. And in fact, that's what I believe my Indra's net vision showed very clearly. And I would cycle through these realms. I would tumble back down to that earthworm eye view, but I learned by remembering the musical notes of the melody, I could conjure up and come back into that Gateway Valley, and then the angelic choirs provided a portal to the even higher levels again and again, until there came a time when I was to head back. They had always promised me, you're not here to stay, you'll be going back. I'd come to believe that was back to the earthworm's eye view, but in fact, I was headed back to this earthly realm. I didn't know that. That was on day 7 of coma, and the family had been advised I'd gone from a 10% chance of survival down to 2%, but with no chance of recovery. And that's why the doctors on day 7, that Sunday morning, were recommending stopping antibiotics, letting nature take its course. And that's when my youngest son, Bond, who at that time was 10 years old, came running into the room. Dad, you're going to be okay. Daddy, you're going to be okay. I did not understand the words. I did not recognize him at all. I promise you, I didn't see him with my eyes or hear him with my ears, but I knew I now had to come back because my existence was very important to this other soul. And that was really the reason I came back to this world. Interesting name, Bond, because in fact, he was very much my bond to this world. And the 13 years since then, working with scientists around the world. You can learn more, for example, at GalileoCommission.org. I'm on the scientific advisory board for that group. Also review all those BigelowInstitute.org papers to learn more about all the evidence suggesting we're eternal souls, and that there's nothing to fear about death. But it's important to point out that our lives here, this is where we get the work done. In this material world, we don't get the growth done in those outer realms. That's the spiritual realms. That's simply where we plan to come in here, even though we know we will have programmed forgetting, that we won't necessarily remember those past lives and between lives experiences. As the doctors like Ian Stevenson and Jim Tucker, who've written about these thousands of cases of reincarnation memories of children, will tell you, you have to harvest those before age 5 or 6 because they're covered over by natural processes after that. But the deep reality is all of us can recover such memories through meditation, through hypnotic regression. And I strongly recommend meditation as a mode for getting deeply into this understanding. There's plenty of scientific work that we discuss in our book, Living in a Mindful Universe, and I discuss in many of my other talks. For example, how the use of psilocybin, magic mushrooms, has been shown to basically allow the decrease in neuronal activity throughout the brain, and yet profound phenomenal experiences. That's been documented in numerous papers. It basically is showing us the brain is not the creator of consciousness. That was something crystal clear to me in my journey, because there's a case report on my medical records. It came out in Journal of Nerves.
So that was Dr. Eben Alexander, who is an American neurosurgeon and an author. He was talking about a very, very interesting topic because he himself had this personal near-death experience, and he had written a book about it, Proof of Heaven, a neurosurgeon's journey into the afterlife, in 2012. The incident happened in 2008. And from there, from his researches, from his personal experience and his training as a neurosurgeon, he had assured everyone in his writings that science can and will determine that brain does not create consciousness, and that consciousness survives physical death. Right. So we now move on to Steve Taylor. Steve, welcome to the World Confluence. We have already talked about Steve's background. He approaches spirituality from a background of psychology, and we have given the details of his achievements. So welcome, Steve. And we are absolutely willing to hear your perspective on spirituality.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here at this conference. In this presentation, I'm going to speak about my research as a psychologist. In particular, I'm going to speak about my research into a phenomenon which I call transformation through turmoil. And this is when people who go through intense psychological turmoil, such as depression, stress, it could be imprisonment, it could be warfare, it could be bereavement, it could be a diagnosis of cancer. It's when they go through these difficult circumstances and undergo a spiritual awakening. So I spent the last 15 years investigating this strange phenomenon, which I call transformation through turmoil. But I'd like to begin actually with a poem, because I write poetry. I am a spiritual poet as well as a psychologist. So I'd like to begin with by reading a poem. And this is a poem which is called Meeting Purely in Presence. And it's about how when groups of human beings come together, as we have come together at this conference, we should let go of any preconceptions. We should let go of any intentions. We should let go of any concepts whatsoever and be purely present to one another. So let me read this poem and we can meditate on the meaning of the words that I speak in this poem. This is meeting purely in presence. Let's meet without pretense, without hierarchies of status or artificial shows of respect, without trying to impress each other with our knowledge or charm or humor. Let's meet without fear of exposing our vulnerabilities, without being embarrassed by our need for love or pretending to be self-sufficient. Let's meet without the past, without letting our urge to connect be obstructed by old resentments, without letting our natural empathy be blocked by hard, fixed prejudice. Let's meet without insecurity, knowing we don't have to prove that we're worthy of each other's affection, since love doesn't need to be earned or gained, but simply allowed to flow. Let's meet without intentions, without any designs or goals, knowing we don't have to try to relate to each other because we're already related, knowing that there's nothing we need to do except allow ourselves to be. Let's meet purely in presence, without any conditions or concepts, knowing that in essence, we are the same. And in being, we are one. So let's, for a moment, wherever we are in the world, no matter how we are separated by physical distance, let's sense the connection between us right now. And let's be purely present to each other. Letting go of all concepts of the future or past, letting go of any intentions or preconceptions, just being purely present to one another. And in a sense, that poem illustrates the transformation which people go through in the midst of intense psychological turmoil. It's a process of letting go, a process of stripping down to the essence of our being. And I'm going to describe I'm going to illustrate this with some examples from my research. But let me just ask you a question first. I want to ask you all a question. And I'm going to share a slide actually to show you the question. I think I'm able to share slides. Here we go. I'm going to ask you this question. Have you been through a traumatic event which has led to a spiritual awakening or to significant spiritual development. Does that apply to you? Have you ever been through a traumatic event which has led to spiritual awakening or significant spiritual development? Feel free to reply in the chat box, or to even to talk about your example in the chat box. But I think a lot of spiritually orientated people have been through some form of trauma, some form of turmoil earlier in their lives, which has led to spiritual development or spiritual awakening. And I have found that it's very common for people to have sudden spiritual experiences when they are in the midst of incredibly stressful events. I'll give you one example here. This is one example from my research. This was a soldier, an American soldier, who was fighting in the Vietnam War. I think this was in 1969. And in the midst of the terror of the battle, he had this tremendous spiritual, mystical experience. And this is how he described it. He said, "With casualties mounting, I was in a state of high anxiety, and there was no way I would live through this seemingly endless battle. At one point, after carrying yet another severely wounded Marine to a waiting chopper, something happened to me. It's actually indescribable, but I'll make a feeble attempt to do so. I opened up literally from my perspective. I came out of myself. I expanded infinitely. I disappeared. It didn't last long, but it was the most powerful experience I've ever had." This experience was life-changing, but when this man returned to America after the war, he became a spiritual seeker because he wanted to find the meaning of this experience, and he wanted to recapture this experience. He didn't know anything about spirituality before, but he naturally gravitated towards Buddhism and Hinduism and other spiritual approaches in order to find the meaning of this experience. But also, I found in my research that when people go through these intensely stressful situations, they don't just have experiences, but they can shift, they can undergo a permanent shift into a different state, into a permanently spiritual state. In other words, they can undergo enlightenment or spiritual awakening. And this is a phenomenon which I call transformation through turmoil. And I write about it in my new book, Extraordinary Awakenings. It doesn't really matter what the type of trauma is, just any really intense or severe form of trauma can bring about sudden spiritual awakening. It's almost as if there is a latent spiritual self, a latent spiritually awakened self, which is dormant within some people. And when they go through intense trauma, which breaks down the ego, then this latent self arises inside them. It often happens in prisoners. I've found so many cases of prisoners who've undergone sudden spiritual awakening. And usually it happens with long-term prisoners who don't have any hope of getting out, who don't know if they will get out. At a certain point, they have to accept the reality of their situation. And they also, because they spend so much time in a turbulent environment, they are forced to go inside themselves. They are forced to look inside and explore their own being in a way that they've never done before. And in the process of exploring themselves, they find a spiritual essence that they were never aware of before. They find a more authentic, deeper spiritual self. And once you gain contact with that self, then you never lose contact again. Once you have that first glimpse, then it's always open to you. It often happens in addicts too. After a long period of addiction, the ego may break down. People begin to lose everything that which defined them as a person. Their identity slowly dissolves away, and a new self seems to be born inside them. And that often manifests itself in a sudden disappearance of addiction, which I call addiction release. It's a very mysterious phenomenon where people who've been addicted to alcohol or drugs for many, many years suddenly become free of their addiction in a moment of transformation. Let me just give you a couple of examples. This was a lady called Irene who was diagnosed with cancer. And she experienced a transformation right after being diagnosed with cancer. This is how she described it. She said, "It was the first time I'd seen death as a reality and realized that life is just temporary. The following day, I woke up and thought, I'm just so lucky to be alive, the fact that I'm still here. The air was so clean and fresh, and everything I looked at seemed so vibrant and vivid. The trees were so green and everything was so alive. I became aware of this energy radiating from the trees. I had a tremendous feeling of connectedness." And she said that this feeling was really intense for the first few weeks, and it's remained ever since. It just blew me away, it really did. I used to just sit and think, this is so amazing that things could just fall into place so quickly. So that came from, as you said, it came from becoming aware of the reality of death, becoming aware of the preciousness and the fragility and the temporary nature of life. It came from no longer taking life for granted. And Irene was lucky. Her cancer went into remission, maybe because she accepted it in this way, and she shifted into this higher state of being. But even though her cancer went into remission, she remained in this higher state. She remained in this heightened state of appreciation and this state of awe and wonder at life itself. Let's give you another quick example. This is a woman called Eve, who was, she was an alcoholic for 29 years, a very severe alcoholic. And she went through the process of losing everything because of her alcoholism. She lost her friends, she lost her family, she lost her job. She couldn't hold down a job. She lost her possessions. She lost her self-respect. And eventually, she had nothing left. She was living on the street. She was homeless, and she was shoplifting just to keep going with her alcoholism. But she'd reached the point where, she wasn't even enjoying drinking. It was just to control her withdrawal symptoms, to stop herself shaking or to stop her hallucinations. And at this point, she decided that she had no option but to commit suicide. She had no hope. She couldn't stop drinking. So she decided she was going to commit suicide. So she tried to commit suicide by jumping in front of a coach, which was traveling at 40 miles an hour, but the driver swerved and she survived. But in the moment of attempting suicide and surviving, something changed inside her. She underwent a radical shift. And what happened afterwards was that she was taken to her mother's house, and the mother gave her a drink because she was an alcoholic. She felt she had to give her a drink, but she couldn't drink it. She said, I picked up the glass, I lifted it and put it down. I kept picking it up and putting it down. It wasn't me that was putting it down. Then her mother put her in front of a mirror and said, look at yourself. So she looked at herself and she said, it was one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had. I had no idea who I was. I didn't connect with my reflection. I felt like a completely different person. So in that moment of attempting suicide and returning from that encounter with death, she underwent a shift. She became a different person. She underwent a spiritual awakening. And now it's 11 years since she had a drink. She's been completely free of craving for alcohol since then. And she's remained in this ongoing state of harmony, well-being, and trust, and a feeling of connection to other people. So she's definitely undergone a spiritual awakening in the midst of her turmoil and the stress of her addiction. So one thing I wanted to investigate in my research was, why does this transformation occur? Why do people who go through intense trauma and turmoil undergo spiritual awakening? So my conclusion was that it's connected to the dissolving of psychological attachments. Normally, a person's identity is defined by the things they are attached to. It's defined by the roles we have in our lives, the roles we have in society. It's defined by our status, our success, our achievements, our knowledge, our beliefs, our ambitions, even our possessions. All of these things define who we are. They give us a sense of identity. But when a person goes through intense turmoil and trauma, it breaks down all of these attachments. All of these attachments to possessions, to ambitions, to beliefs, to status and success and so on, they are broken down. And in that process, the ego itself breaks down because the ego consists of all of these attachments. So a person's ego breaks down, and then there's suddenly a space for a new self to emerge inside them. So a spiritually awakened self, which has been dormant inside them, suddenly emerges and takes the place of their old ego. So they undergo an identity shift. Actually, the sun is shining through my computer. I'm just going to turn around a little bit. It's quite rare that the sun shines here in England, so we should take advantage of it. But that's the main factor, I think, that turmoil and trauma break down the ego, and a new spiritually awakened self, which has been latent, emerges. But there's one factor which I think is really important in this, which is acceptance. I found that people were most likely to undergo transformation when they were in a mode of acceptance. That means that they were willing to let go of any resistance to their predicament. They were willing to face up to the reality of it and open themselves completely to the reality of the situation, to embrace it, no matter how painful or how negative it was. So acceptance was the alchemical power which gave rise to this transformation. That's why I sometimes refer to the alchemy of acceptance. And that's something we can learn from these experiences. We can all apply the alchemy of acceptance to our own lives. And we can also apply the process of dissolving psychological attachments to our own lives. It reminds us that it's really important not to be attached to too many concepts or too many preconceptions about our lives. It's important not to be attached to beliefs, to status, to success, to ambitions, and so on. The more free we are of attachments, then the more likely we are to undergo spiritual development. So I'd like to read another poem now, which is called The Alchemy of Acceptance, just to illustrate that. And as I read this poem, which is one of my own poems, you can maybe consider applying the process of acceptance to your own life. Everything which is in your own life, everything which constitutes your life, open yourself to it, accept it as your reality. Don't resist anything in your life. Whenever you resist any aspect of your life or your life situation, it creates conflict. It creates a duality between you and your life. So just try to open yourself to every aspect of your life and your life situation. So this is a poem called The Alchemy of Acceptance. Emptiness can be a vacuum, cold and hostile, dark with danger. Or emptiness can be radiant space, glowing with soft stillness. And the only difference between them is acceptance. A task may seem tedious, a chore to rush through reluctantly. Or a task may seem rewarding, a process to relish with an attentive mind that reveals more richness the more present you become. And the only difference between them is acceptance. Pain may seem unbearable, searing through you from a sharp, concentrated point, so that you have no choice but to resist, to try to escape, to push away the pain. Or pain can be a sensation that you can move toward and merge with. until it becomes soft and numb, no longer pain at all. And the only difference between them is acceptance. Trauma can break you down to nothing, destroy the identity you spent your whole life building up, like an earthquake that leaves you in ruins. Or trauma can transform you, break open new depths and heights of you, give rise to a greater structure, a miraculous new self. And the only difference between them is acceptance. At the moment, we're living through a period of great turmoil on a collective scale. At the moment, we're facing a lot of challenges as a species. But as we know that there is a powerful transformational potential in turmoil and crises, I think there is a process of collective spiritual awakening taking place in the world right now, partly because of the challenges we are facing. In a sense, we're all like people who've been diagnosed with cancer or who are going through a period of addiction. The whole human species is facing those kind of crises. We're facing ecological crises, political crises, and so forth. But I think these crises are causing the wave of spiritual awakening which is taking place all over the world. And I think even as these crises intensify, the wave of spiritual awakening will also intensify. I'd just like to leave you with one thought and one image. Let me just share this slide with you. This is a slide showing an image which my son, when he was 14 years old, he told me, I've had a dream. He woke up one morning and said, I had a really strange dream last night. And he said, he drew this picture for me to illustrate the dream. He said that he saw the world as if it was an eggshell, and the world cracked open and a butterfly emerged from the egg of the world. And I thought that was a wonderful symbol to illustrate the collective transformation which is taking place in the world right now. There is a new wave of spiritual awakening which is giving rise to a new type of human being. I think Sri Aurobindo, who incidentally had a powerful spiritual awakening when he was in prison, he described this as the Gnostic being, the new type of human being with a new spiritual awareness. So I think that the butterfly of this new type of human being is emerging because of the collective trauma and turmoil that we're going through as a species. And I hope that this new wave of spiritual awakening will manifest itself completely in the next few years or few decades. Thank you very much.
Second, let me unmute myself. Right. So we were just hearing very interesting experiences, and of course, the collective, let's say, experience that he has gathered from research, from many of his patients. Psychologist Steve Taylor telling us about transformation, how trauma has led to transformation. Very interesting indeed, and a completely new perspective on spirituality. Thank you once again. And now we have with us Mr. Liu Coutinho. He is an award-winning and globally renowned integrative and holistic lifestyle coach. His unique community concept, You Care, All About You, has millions of ardent global fans. his approach towards prevention and recovery revolves around four concepts, four pillars, one might say. One is balanced nutrition, adequate exercise, quality sleep, and emotional detox. Liu Coutinho has been much awarded for he is doing something in India which is very necessary, where sort of wellness is a concept beyond the dreams and surely the pockets of the majority of the Indians. His approach and the fact that most of it is available free to all Indians have led to quantum changes in the concept of wellness and its dissemination amongst the people. So we welcome Mr. Liu Coutinho, and we would really love to ask you some questions. Can I get started?
Thank you for having me. Please go right ahead.
Right. So before I start the first question, may I request all our viewers all over the world, that you can definitely make this interactive, definitely participate by placing your comments and particularly your questions, your queries on our chat box, and we'll get back to you. Right. So this is a question to Luke. What is the role of spirituality in health and healing?
So that's a great question. You know, spirituality today that we start off with, it's such a deep topic. It's a topic that we should be familiar with it, but it's also becoming a fad. Like there are diet fads, there are exercise fads, there are also spiritual fads today, and we got to be careful and aware of that. A lot of people take up spirituality very blindly. You know what I mean by that? There are people who absorb more of the scriptures and readings and from different religions or different spiritual paths, but they never practice it. They take knowledge, but they never put it into action. Some people use spirituality as a shield, and they believe that if I'm reading this, if I believe in this, I don't have to do any work. But there is always work to be done, even in spirituality. So spirituality plays a huge role in human health, in disease. My work is with end-of-life patients. We treat cancer patients around the world. And spirituality or religion, there's a big difference between the two, and to each his own. But it forms the fundamental meaning of purpose in one's life. When we adopt any spiritual path, it gives us purpose. Without purpose, we have nothing. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who shared his notes from the concentration camps from days before, always said one beautiful thing, that suffering without meaning is the biggest problem. It's not suffering, suffering without meaning. So when you talk to patients and patients are fearful about death, they find it difficult to accept their disease. We assume that it is difficult and we leave it there. But guiding them on a spiritual path helps them to actually address real questions like, where am I going when I die? Will I be remembered? How will my children who I leave behind survive? Will there be enough of money for my family? These are real questions that patients go through. And we can't address these questions with our opinions and our empathy alone. And that's why a spiritual path gives us purpose. Now, spirituality can be something as simple as compassion. If there are people across the world watching this today and they think, oh no, I need to start with spirituality, what books should I buy? While you do that, that's great, but you can start right now. Spirituality doesn't have to be a path. It can be a choice to be compassionate. That's spirituality. It could be a step towards leading a kinder life, being kinder. It could be a step towards giving without expectation. All of this together is spirituality. And then, of course, we have spirituality that goes into scriptures and the Vedas and the Quran and books, and we take lessons from that. And we share those lessons with people, and we want them to learn from those lessons. But right now, I love to talk about something called compassion. Because the biggest thing about compassion is people don't understand what it is. They find it difficult. Compassion basically means to suffer with. So if I can suffer with my patients, now we don't look at suffering in a negative way. Our patients are suffering. They don't need people to tell them what more to do. That take your medications on time. This is the biology of this particular medicine in your body. This is what's going to happen. They know all of that. We need to participate in their suffering. That is the true meaning of compassion. Someone's hurting and they hurt us. We want to hurt them back. We know they're hurting. Can we participate in their suffering by maybe not responding or not reacting or understanding that they're hurting? And our words are not going to make a difference. Our reaction is not going to make a difference. So compassion simply means to suffer with. It doesn't make us doormats. It doesn't mean we have to take nonsense from people. But since your question is specifically around health, there is a huge role. So, a lot of diseases cannot be cured, unfortunately, but it doesn't mean that there cannot be healing. While a disease may not be able to be cured, there can be healing. What is that kind of healing? It doesn't mean more nutritious foods and different drugs. It means when we heal, we learn to accept what is in our body. We learn to accept the disease. And with that acceptance, how does it move us on in that journey? Do we become victims or do we start taking little actions? Healing also helps us revisit mistakes we made in the past, failures, things we can do. Maybe there's a forgiving job to be done. Maybe there are things to let go. Maybe there are family members to call up that you haven't spoken to for whatever reasons. All of that, when we start to do that, that is healing. So while a disease may not be able to be cured, you can heal. And today, medical science that studies spirituality is showing us that when this healing happens, the body can also learn to live with certain diseases. And we see this, a fourth stage cancer. Okay, in medical books, it's usually 2 months, 3 weeks, 1 year, depending on the condition and the patient. But how many patients live way beyond that? Years and years and years and years. What's happened? Are the medical statistics wrong? Or did healing happen despite the disease? So spirituality, in the simplest way, is when we start to reconnect with our spirit. We all have a spirit within us. We have to rekindle that spirit at some point. For some people, it may be forgiveness. For some people, it may be acceptance. For some people, it may be we've been too self-centered and now it's the time to give. Now it's the time to, overcome negative emotions that have been weighing us down. And we can take assistance from several spiritual paths that exist around the world. There are a lot of good spiritual paths. The choice is everyone. But to start today, we decide to rekindle the spirit within us. How do we do that? Number one, that we know, awareness that there is a spirit within us. That's what keeps us going every day. It's not the caffeine from coffee that keeps us going every day. It's not the motivation for a job or business. There is a spirit within us. And that is controlled by the intelligence of the human body that no scientists, no biologists, no doctors, no nutritionists yet understand. The spirit is the beginning of spirituality. And then how you nurture the path that you choose to take, it plays a massive role in prevention of diseases, as well as when you have a disease, how you start the healing process beyond your medication, beyond your nutrition, beyond your exercise, beyond your sleep. So this is the role. Spirituality can help us get through difficult times. It will not take away the difficult times, but it will help us get through because there is purpose and there is meaning.
Thank you so much. Actually, it's very clear that when you and your team treats the patients who come to you, possibly most of them with terminal illness, you address the spiritual self, whereas the doctor is addressing and trying to correct the physical self. Now, you have given us the theory of how you go about it. Can you give us some specific examples of certain practices that you recommend to, as you say, to help the patients connect with his or her spiritual self?
I think it starts off with meditation. If some people resist the word meditation, we can call it silence, just being in silence with yourself. If some people resist the word silence, we can call it reflection, where you start reflecting on everything that's happened till now. Through reflection, we learn lessons. If all of us can learn through the simple example, at the end of your day, spend 10 days of reflecting from the time you woke up till the time you sleep, how your day went. Don't judge it. Don't judge anything that happened. You're just reflecting. Who were you over here? when you were angry, when you were happy, when you were eating your meal. Just reflect. There is so much to learn from reflection, and that's connecting with your soul. All lessons come from there. So we teach them meditation. We teach them silence. We teach them guided meditation if they have a problem with, just doing meditation on their own. There are other ways through communication. Everything's not by asking questions. If you ever ask, what are your deepest fears? Once you break through to them, they have so much to say. Like I said earlier, what will my family do without me? Where am I going from here? Okay, is there a God to look after me? Am I going to be punished for my sins? They have questions, and these come from a space of fear. When we operate from a space of fear, healing in the human body cannot happen at a physical level or an emotional level. And that's where, when they have a chance to speak and ask these questions, and then people can guide them through. We don't always have those answers. So sometimes there's a counselor brought in. Sometimes they want their religious priest to come in and answer certain questions. But you make it happen for them. You make it happen for them. But at the same time, a lot of people think that the moment you start asking these questions, they think, oh, you think I'm dying. Do you think I'm going to die really soon? And that's why you're asking me these questions. So it's really building a connection between the patient, the physician, whoever's treating them, so that they have the ability to first accept and then to start asking all the relevant questions in regards to all of their fears. So meditation is beautiful. Prayer is also beautiful. We encourage prayer, whether they pray to a God or they pray to a universe. We encourage them to pray with faith and belief, because there always has to be hope. When hope is taken away from any human being, whether they have cancer or they don't have cancer or any disease, if hope is taken away, there is no more purpose for life. There is no more meaning. So you're literally living, but you're dead. So these are simple ways for us to reconnect: sitting in silence, reflection, okay, cutting away from people sometimes, so you can just be with your own thoughts, assimilate your own thoughts. Meditation is powerful.
Thank you. I believe that one of the things that you say is that every human being has one or more superpowers. So in that respect, we are all, sort of superheroes. But if you were to list 3 primary superpowers that human beings have, all human beings have, what would they be?
So there are several powers, but I'm going to give you 3 since you asked for them. Human beings, everyone, you and me, everyone, we have the power to choose. But we don't use it because we're scared. What happens if it's the wrong choice? We have the power to accept. It is only up to us. You cannot be inspired into acceptance. You cannot be motivated into acceptance. You have the power, you got to use it. And we have the power to let go as well. These are 3 powers out of several superpowers that humans have. And these are the most underutilized powers that we have. The most underutilized. Right now, anyone who has stress, if you write it on a piece of paper what your 5 stressors are, and if you can tag any of them with either I can accept this or I can let go of this, it no longer is a stressor in your life. And these are the powers that we have, but it requires the power of strength and courage to also do these things. They're easy to say, difficult to do, but difficult doesn't mean impossible.
That's true. We were just talking to a psychologist who approaches spirituality from the psychological point of view, Mr. Steve Taylor, and he was talking about patients of his who have had a tremendous transformation, a spiritual transformation after a near-death experience or some kind of traumatic experience. So how do people go back finding their spirituality after a life-altering event has taken place?
See, it really depends on people's faith and belief. Our whole life cycle, revolves around faith and belief. Like, we have faith that the sun is going to rise tomorrow. We have a belief that the sun is going to set in the evening. We don't have to think about this. We don't question them because there's solid faiths and beliefs in our mind. So spirituality always starts off with faith, always. So when people move from one spiritual path to another because they're constantly searching but not practicing, not taking one little bit from a vast sea of spirituality, you may just need that one little thing that can change your entire life. But people want to take everything because it sounds good. Spirituality sounds like music today. When we read spiritual books, we feel so good. But how many people take that one little thing, and that's the one little thing that if they put into action, it will help them. So people who have gone through traumatic events, I logged in to hear the last part of what Dr. Taylor was talking about, and I was really impressed about the acceptance part, because it all starts with acceptance, period. We cannot move, we cannot progress without acceptance, period. That's how it works. So when people have gone through traumatic events, bringing them back, gently nurturing them, we can't preach to them that you got to do this, you got to do that. No, we lead by example. We show them the very fact that you out of 1 million people have come back with life and health right now. What is that? That is divine grace. And let that sink in. Let that sink in. And then you start with the next thing, gratitude, or whatever it takes. It's different for everyone. Some people, the event is enough for them to be spiritually awakened without the help of anyone else, because they're mindful. They're mindful that their life was almost taken away completely. So spirituality exists in every one of us. It's just waiting to be awakened. And we have to create that environment by starting off with mindfulness, acceptance, faith, belief. We just got to put ourselves there, and magical things happen when we are ready to accept that our spirit is ready to be awakened.
Thank you so much, Luke. You have made everything crystal clear. And we now realize why millions of people find peace, find a spiritual awakening simply by coming in contact with you. Thank you once again, and go on doing the great work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And now we would continue the 14th World Confluence of Humanity, Power and Spirituality by requesting Sri Hemant Kanoria to address our millions of viewers all over the world. Sri Hemant Kanoria.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to all the dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, here in Calcutta and all around the world. It is really, as my father mentioned, to start off with, it is always a pleasure to welcome all of you, dignitaries and participants who are coming from all over the world, sharing their views, and people participating overwhelmingly in this conference. This is the 14th year, and I think that your participations of the dignitaries and all the other people from all around the world has been very motivating, and that is how the Kanoria Foundation, the Universal Spirituality and Humanity Foundation, and all the team members under the guidance of my father, they have got motivated and inspired to continue with this particular confluence year after year. So thank you very much to all of you and dignitaries who are participating, eminent speakers, and all the illustrious personalities. Thank you for making it convenient to participate today and tomorrow. As the world keeps on moving on, and we see that with the influence of technology, we are talking about that how in the last 2 years, the whole world has become virtual with pandemic, and people who have not even accepted to be online in interactions, all of us, it has become a new normal for us to participate through technology. This conference also, last year also the conference was virtual. This year also it is virtual. We do miss the interactions which are physical, the human touch, the networking, sharing of various ideas, because on the virtual platform, it gets very formal. But nevertheless, we are in a position to reach to a much larger number of participants. And as the world moves on, and as we are embracing technology so fast, we see that one trend which has started developing is the people have started feeling that they are not at peace with themselves. They've started feeling discontentment. They've started feeling that there's something which is missing in their lives, being locked up in their houses or being on the virtual calls always. So there's something, though technologically we are advancing, though we are becoming very intelligent, and we seem to be knowing almost everything. about everyone, every place, because now on the Google, you can know everything in a fraction of a second. You can be there wherever you want to in a fraction of a second. So perceptibly, we know everything. But do we actually know ourselves? And that's the moot question, which many of us, we have been asking ourselves, that do we know ourselves? Have we embarked on the path of self-realization or self-journey where we want to know ourselves? The first question is that whether we want to know ourselves. If we want to know ourselves, then what is the path that we have embarked on to understand? In the Hindu philosophy and in our Vedas and scriptures in Hinduism, we have large number of Gitas which are there. There is the Bhagavad Gita, which is nothing but the sermon. And all these Gitas, whether it is Avdut Gita, whether it is Astvak Gita, whether it is the Bhishma Gita, all these Gitas, which are basically nothing but sermons, these are all question and answers. So as we know that the Bhagavad Gita, which is the most popular, is the question and answer between Krishna and Arjuna. So Krishna as God is answering questions of Arjuna, who is a human. And he has a lot of questions in his mind, which is asking Krishna, and Krishna is answering. There is nothing which has been dictated in the Vedic philosophy, in Hinduism, that this is what you need to follow. It is only through question and answers that we are in a position to understand ourselves. We are able to understand the reason of being on this particular planet, our objective, and for what tasks which we are here on this particular planet. And this is only through the process of questioning and getting the answer. So the inquisitor continuously keeps on asking these questions. So whether it be in the Bhagavad Gita, through the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, or it be in the Astavak Gita, where there is a dialogue between sage Astavak and Lord Janak. And Lord Janak also wants to understand three basic questions about that: how does he get salvation, and what is knowledge, and what is the purpose of this life. And sage Astavak explains to him answers to all his questions which he is asking, again because the inquisitor wants to embark on the journey of self-realization, of knowing what the person is. Similarly, whether we look at the Uddhav Gita, where Krishna and his friend Uddhav, they get into this dialogue, or Bhishma, where Bhishma and Yudhishthir, the king, the emperor, he gets into this particular dialogue. So therefore, I have been reading many of these particular books in the last couple of years, especially, and using this time of the COVID, when the lockdowns were there, not having too much of travel, to understand that why the scriptures and all the books of the Hinduism, which is based on these question and answers, that why so many people have so many questions, and what is the answers which either the Guru or God is giving to the people. And it is all towards making them go on to the path of self-realization. And finally, what comes out, which has been also explained very well articulately by Mr. Steve Taylor and also Luke, that it is all about understanding ourselves through meditation, through compassion, and that is spirituality. So spirituality has been defined by various people, or has been understood and comprehended by various people in various ways. But it is all reflecting upon ourselves and going into our self journey, looking within ourselves, putting the mirror to ourself, to our inner self, and seeing that what we are and where do we want to embark on. As some of these scriptures have also explained, that we are the part of the super consciousness, the supreme consciousness. So do we really understand the power that is within us? That if we are the supreme consciousness, then it is not that we are separate from the supreme consciousness. So we have the immense power that the supreme has, which is in us. And that is one of the reasons why this confluence is also known as the confluence of spirituality, power, and humanity, because the self-power which is within us is what we need to discover. It reminds me of a story that, once in a village, there was a village lady who had gone into the jungle, and she gives birth to a child and she dies there. The child grows up with the monkeys. The monkeys see, because there is no other human there, so the monkeys take care of the child. And the child also starts behaving like the monkey, because that is where the child is growing. Once the child becomes 8 or 9, suddenly the child comes into the village one fine morning. And when the child comes into the village, the child is on all the 4 limbs of it, not standing or walking. And all the villagers see and find that, why this child is behaving in this particular manner. So one of the village elders comes to the child and tells the child that, you are a human being. The child cannot understand. He puts them up and makes them stand up. The child then very easily stands up. All the other villagers come and they start wanting to speak to the child. The child, first of all, is not able to speak because the child has grown with the monkeys. So therefore, the child's behavior is like the monkey. The child does not know that the child is a human. And the village elder makes him realize that he is a human, tells him that how to speak, and he starts speaking certain words. And suddenly the child realizes that the child is not a monkey. He is a human being. So similarly, with our discovery and our journey of self-realization, if we are on the right path, then we will be also in a position to understand through our reflections that we are a part of that supreme consciousness. And that is a journey which each one of us, we have already, many of us, we have embarked on. We are at an advanced stage. Many of us, we are taking baby steps to go towards it. And that is where I think this contribution of this particular conference is to bring everyone together, that it makes us for 2 days to think, to contemplate, to meditate, and to know that whether we are on the right path, whether we are on the journey towards this self-realization, towards the journey to know ourselves and how well we can know ourselves. On that supreme, to get onto the plane of the supreme consciousness, and realize, because that is what we are. It is like the child who grew up with the monkeys. So similarly, as we grow up in this particular world with the Maya, with illusions, so we get lost in that. We have forgotten that who we are. We are actually the supreme. We are also the part of the supreme consciousness. So we are not different from there. And that is a realization which only comes in once we meet people of that kind, or we are on the path of self-realization. And I think that this is what we are trying to bring. And my father has been working along with all the team members in this conference to bring people together so that we are in a position to either be at an advanced stage of our own realization towards knowing that we are the supreme consciousness, or we have at least embarked with baby steps towards that journey. And it is time which will tell that when we reach our journey, whether it is in this life, if we believe that there are so many other lives also, so we may be in a position to realize either in this life or in the next life which are going to come in. But at least this effort, this realization that we are on the right path of self journey itself is a step in the right direction. So thank you very much once again. And we have many other illustrious and eminent speakers who are going to be there with us today. So it will be a very good learning being in this particular company. There are so many people who have participated from all over the world, the dignitaries who are there. Again, a very big thank you to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kanoria. We would just like to ask you a question which has been sent to our chat box, because we have requested all our viewers to direct their queries to our chat box. And since you started with the pandemic, with the difficult times that the entire world is going through, I think you should be in a really good position to answer this question. I'm sorry, the person who has asked this question has not mentioned his or her name, but it's a very good question and relevant to all of us. What is spirituality? Is it possible to achieve it in the present scenario? So this is the question that we would like your views on.
So I can give you a perspective of a layman because we have so many eminent speakers and evolved souls who are there, and they are on the path of spirituality. They are quite advanced. But as a layman, I can only say that spirituality is something which is there in all of us. It is some of us who have been able to realize. It is like the story of the human who had grown up with the monkeys. So as soon as it came in the company of the humans, the boy realized that he was a human and not a monkey. So his behavioral pattern and everything changed. So similarly, spirituality is basically in all of us. And we are part of that supreme consciousness. We are not separate. It is only for us to have that realization. Many times when we stand in front of the mirror, then we see ourselves, the physical self, but it is very rarely that we stand in front of the inner mirror of ourselves and see ourselves and ask ourselves the question that who am I? And as soon as we start asking that question, we'll start getting the answers, because then either we are meeting people to understand that, or we are reading the scriptures, whether it be the Gita, the Vedas, the Holy Bible, Quran, all these particular scriptures, they talk about the same thing. It's all putting us on the right path of self-realization, but there's nothing else. You can't get a medicine of spirituality. You can't go to a pharmacy and ask them that, please give me a file of spirituality, and you take it and you become spiritual. It is a self-journey.
And as you mentioned that during the pandemic, since there was less travel, you had more time to read books on spirituality. Similarly, as this person has asked, that in the present scenario, maybe the time that we have to ourselves can lead to more reflections, and that can sort of reawaken the spirituality in all of us. Maybe the present scenario is connected to spirituality in that way.
No, I'm sure, because you see, when we have seen the pandemic and very many people were scared that what is going to happen to them, there have been so many deaths which have been there globally, and this virus was not to be seen. So this was an invisible virus which could attack anyone. So therefore, the only strength was the inner self. The people who were healthier, I would say, were not affected, though the COVID did attack them, but they still lived. And people who are weak, they succumb to it. So similarly, I think that when we are reading books, when we are able to get time to ourselves, then we contemplate, meditate, think, read. And when we are doing this self-study, so it results in so many things which we are able to discover ourselves. And I think that this is what the pandemic has shown us, and it has also given us the time to reflect, because otherwise everyone was busy in their own worlds, running around, and many times we did not know why we were running around and for what.
Thank you so much. That was beautifully answered. Thank you once again. And now we move on to another very noted, distinguished speaker, Swami Srimat Suparnanandaji Maharaj, a regular, let's say, participant in the World Confluence. We welcome you, sir. A very, very senior monk of the Ramakrishna Order. And right now, he's the secretary of Ramakrishna Mission Institute of Calcutta, Bull Park. So we welcome Swamiji, pranam to you, and we look forward to your address.
Namaste. Om Janani Sharadam Devi Ramakrishna. So, my love and respect to you, Madhumunti, and I am really impressed very much by the speech made by Hemant, and it seems that he has inherited all the best qualities of his father, Prasad Kanoria. I am very much impressed. I am telling it, I am saying it to you. So forcefully that I could visualize that he, in his own person, has made some sort of realization of the problem of say, solving the best problems, best issues of our life, spirituality. Spirituality, as you have said, so it is within us, each of us. We are all divine. Our exact, say, exact possession, exact the real nature, exact truth in us, undying truth, unchangeable truth is spirituality, or the spirit as such. In the waking state, we are conscious of our body. In the dream state, we are conscious of our mind. Mind has been separated from our body in the dream state. And in dream, we come out of our body, which is lying on the bed still, and move around the world, enjoying and suffering. We create a new world in mind. So that mind even is powerless to give an idea about the spirit. When in deep sleep state, we go beyond both mind and body and intellect. And we do not know what we are really. But the fact remains that when we get up, we feel that we slept well. There was bliss all around. So that state of our existence in deep sleep is what we given a name, spirit or spirituality. From that comes spirituality or spiritual. So we are basically all spiritual. That is our innate nature, the real nature, we are spirit. And that has to be attained. And how to attain? Not in deep sleep. That is the idea. That is the truth being given to us. And all of us would have that existence of that in a very most certain way, that we are spirit, basically. We are spirit. But how to experience it in our day-to-day life? That is a great question. And that, for that you have to go for a discipline. That is what is called Pranayama. Patanjali Yoga Sutra has given us pranayama, details of pranayama. You have to be mindful about your own real existence. And the mindful, it is a sort of meditation, where we are mindful of every thought and of our every breath. Breath is there from birth to death, but we do not give it any attention. And yet, it is so important for our survival. We can go without food for days together, but not without even for a few moments. The moment we give attention to our breath, we become mindful. There is one kind of mindfulness. The other kind of mindfulness is more important if we need to remove, to move forward spiritually. We have to be mindful of the outside world, of what we speak, of what we do, of how we treat people. I can sit and talk about peace, then go home and mistreat my mother, my wife, my husband, my neighbors. On both sides, both inside and outside, things which are developed mindfulness. We have to integrate the two, outside and inside stories. When mind is settled down, we become a gentle person. There is no wastage of energy in my life then. We have no right to be angry with anybody, since others are not different from us. In essence, we are all one. And that is spirituality. And that gives us power. And that makes us all true human beings. There's a connection between humanity, power, and spirituality is there on. So we are one, and our minds are also one. The change we first do, we must be the change we want to see elsewhere in society. we say that. It means be mindful. Mind is common between all of us. It is common, not body is common. Spirit is common at the highest level, but mind in the intermediate state is common between all of us, common to all. Right now, in the face of COVID-19, we have enough time at our disposal to go for looking into the different aspects of our interest. We have enough time to study our mind. And this is mind which, with the help of which, we can go to the ultimate state of our existence, the spirit. With the help of mind, which is matter, spine matter, we can get to something which is all divine. So mind, we have to take it up with all earnest. Mind has to be given paramount importance. We are speaking about the pranayama or breathing. During this pandemic period, you can ask your children, even you participate with them, how to inhale and how to exhale, how to control breathing. We have to slowly inhale through our nostrils. This is a very simple pranayama, which each one of you can practice. Through your nostrils, you inhale, but see that you do not breathe in jerks. Breathing should be continuous. Continuous breathing. You inhale through your nostrils. While inhaling, chant mentally. Om. Hold in your breath for 30 seconds. After inhaling fully, then you hold for 30 seconds, minimum 30 seconds. And then start slowly exhaling with your mouth slightly open. I won't advise you to exhale through your nostril again. You inhale through nostril, but exhale through your mouth. The mouth slightly open. You can chant your mantra for God's name, if you so like. Do it for 5 minutes. We won't say that you should do for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 20 minutes. That is sufficient for 5 minutes. But this count, you must maintain this count. 30 seconds, inhaling in 16 seconds, double it. Or inhaling for 8 seconds, holding for 30 seconds, and exhaling for 16 seconds. 8, 30, and 16. So 8 into 4 times. Greater time you have to give for holding the breath inside. Now some say that holding the breath inside may cause some problems, heart problems. But that's why I say that you practice it for 5 minutes. That is important. Then in the next stage, you need not have to count the time, but go on inhaling through nostrils and then slowly exhaling through your mouth. Inhaling, take as long time as you prefer. Inhaling and then exhale. Take a little bit more time to exhale. See to that. And do it for as long as you can. This is called the rhythmic breathing. You take rhythmic breathing for hours together. Even 600, 700 such breathing. Normal rhythmic breathing. Rhythmic breathing. Rhythmic breathing. If you have time to discuss, that's why I say, but we are all in a very hurry. We have our so many areas to divide our mind and attention. But during this, particularly during this COVID time, if the seniors, the senior members of the family, they take to that practice, then the juniors, they will automatically follow. It has a great impact, and you will have permanent peace. And then with this practice, when you come to your office for work, you see that this sort of meditation will follow you. It will never leave you. It will help you a lot. If you love to work, don't distract your mind. Do it like a meditation. Work can be converted into meditation. You generally have a wrong idea that you keep your mind distracted throughout the day, but you wrongly expect that you can perfectly meditate without distraction for 30 minutes in the evening. All sorts of distractions you followed in the office. And when you come back to your home, sweet home, and sit in the corner of your side, you feel that you have perfect say, meditation. Never. You don't expect. It's a wrong idea. This is not feasible. The whole theory of karma is that you must work with complete attention for the benefit of others other than for your own self. If in discharge of your duty in the offices and assignments, if you feel that whatever you are doing for the benefit of others, because others are different from you. Spiritually, we are all one. Mentally, we are less than one. And physically, we are quite different from others. But since you have to keep in mind that ultimately we are one, so whatever we do, we must do for the benefit of others and not benefit for others. So unselfishness, that has to go, and you that way purify your work. That is why while working, you have to take some breaks for short intervals. Close your eyes and visualize. Do your job on while doing so. Again, go to work. You can sit at your desk for 2 minutes quiet. Even in the midst of work, you can practice this with your eyes closed. Your colleagues will gradually follow you. They won't criticize. They will understand it in course of time. And you also find joy in following that sort of meditation while work. Don't be embarrassed. You all become powerful. Power is not in matter, not outside us. It is within us. Power of Atman, the spirit, is the ultimate power governing this universe. Our goal is to guide humanity to attain the full strength of power of the spirit. Spiritual power is the seat of all powers for humanity. And Atmanam Vid, we know everything else around us, and not ourselves. That is bad. That's why our Upanishad, they constantly whispering in our ear, know thyself, Atmanam Vidhi. Even during the COVID-19 pandemic, we must not lose sight of the beneficial aspects of preparing ourselves for the highest truth. So Hemant was referring to that. I'm very much pleased. And I didn't expect that, even I could imagine that Hemant Bhai would excel in that art even. His art, his speaking is really full of ideas, and I enjoyed it very much. We have enough time with us now to pick out the issue at hand and thwart the menace means COVID menace, by being internally powerful. Now, this confluence of humanity, power, and spirituality we find in the life of of modern age is practiced severe penance and austerity for a long time to satiate the intense yearning for God realization. And after the divine fulfillment, he proclaimed, as many faiths, so many paths. This is perhaps the best possible way to address the root of all problems in today's world. I am sitting in my own tower. I feel that that is the only thing that is real. All else, it falls. No, this is the best possible address to all problems. Essentially, substantiate leading a good moral and ethical life, practicing tolerance and maintaining harmony with different faith systems and other secular ideas. Sri Ramakrishna followed himself all the different paths of religion, and through them all attained the same ultimate goal. It was demonstrated the underlying spiritual unity of all religions. Spirituality is the common ground of all religions. Non-essential aspects are rituals, books, and dogmas. This is called religion. The spirituality is something else. It is the knowledge of Atma. So first make a distinction between religion and spirituality. We don't say religion. Religions are many. The spirituality is one. Spirituality is Atma, spirit. Everyone. And that's why Sri Ramakrishna said that in all the religions or sects, we should say, he experienced the truth. Truth, the same truth he experienced. That's why he said, Jata Mato, Jata Pato. As many paths, so many faiths. There is only one God known by different names in different religions. Same for all people, irrespective of caste, religion, and gender. Only pure consciousness remains. Could not be discovered. And Swami Vivekananda provided a philosophical foundation with Master's universal vision. He has two aspects. One is the integral vision of the religions, and the other is the integral vision of the universe. Very interesting. I have no time to go through that. But Sri Ramakrishna's vision of harmony of religions, as stated by him, Jatamat Patapad, is a very important truth. And Swamiji's vision of unity of humanity is the third. Brahmavate Kita Param Sabhavute Sei Prema. That Prema, pervading everything from Brahma to the blade of the grass. So all this taken together give a new enlightened understanding of the concept of, I should say, secularism. Secularism and sacredness, these differences between them, altogether wiped out. Secularism means, on the one hand, freedom from sectarian, exclusivistic stranglehold of institutional religions. And on the other hand, the practical application of the knowledge of the immanent spiritual oneness of all humanity as the foundation of the ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity, social. You all understand? So institutional religions, organized religion, they torture the secular people. You know, the scientists, many of the scientists had to be killed because they didn't comply with the truths of the universe as propounded by the religious people. Religious people, organized religious people. So Swamiji has made not a very good remark about that. It is Vedanta which can treat. Even science is equal respect. So the goal is to create enlightened citizens and to build a better, happier world for future generations. And Swamiji's speech, you remember a little bit of it in the Chicago Parliament of Religion? If there is ever to be a universal religion, it must be the one which will have no location in a place or time, which will be infinite like the God it will preach, and whose sun will shine upon the followers of Krishna and of Christ, on saints and sinners alike, which will not be Brahminic or Buddhistic, Christian or Mohammedan, but the sum total of all this, and still have infinite space for development, which in its Catholicity will embrace in its infinite arms and find a place of every human being. Now, this concept is now spreading all over the world. Millions of people, dissatisfied with the inadequacies and contradictions and controversies of institutional religion, are now beginning to understanding that religion is primarily a matter of individual need, challenge, struggle, and fulfillment, as pointed out many years ago by the British philosopher Whitehead. Whitehead, what in Whitehead is, religion is what an individual does with his solitary. There is a question of promulgating an organized religion. That thus Sri Ramakrishna himself manifested the humanity of God, and Swami Vivekananda manifested the divinity of God. It's the most important concept. According to Swamiji, Sri Ramakrishna himself manifested the divinity, humanity of God. God has become human. That's why he has descended to this world out of mercy, out of kindness to help man to become God. And that aspect has been picked up by Swamiji. Swamiji said, all men are potentially divine. It is divinity alone. They are not all physical beings. We have to make that potential magnetic. How? To selfless work, by purifying our mind first. In and through our work, we must not exploit others. We must not deceive others. We must pay respect to them, even in work. And we cease to be selfish. We have to be unselfish. That is the way out. The mind is prepared. Mind becomes pure. Pure mind does not coerce anybody, does not hate anybody, help everybody. And pure mind does not exploit anybody. So people are to be, human beings are to be respected and worshipped. And how come that they are being, say, tortured, humiliated, killed, and what? And exploited. Why? So there are all sorts of these negative qualities. There are qualities, negative qualities, because by taking to these qualities, you can amass wealth and become great in the world, like Ravana. You can establish your heroism, Rajasic vritti, Rajasic nature, very much, and can enjoy. But that is only for meeting the doomsday in your life. You cannot emulate the highest truth, or you cannot expect to live in peace, So those who worship gods in the temple, Swamiji's prophetic statement, you just see, those who worship gods in the temple are religious. He's not condemning them. But those who worship man are gods. Those who worship man, they are gods. The veritable gods are those.
This is really a wonderful statement that those who worship God in a temple, obviously they're religious, but those who worship man, they are ultimately on the path of spirituality.
Not path of spirituality. They are gods.
They are gods. Actually, they have reached, they have arrived.
Strong assertion. Yes.
Right. Thank you so much. I think that should be the concluding thought of what Swamiji has been saying all this while. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Once again this year. Thank you so much. And obviously, life will go on. Spiritual awakening would happen. And next year, we hope to meet you again. Thank you and pranam once again.
Thank you. Hari Prasad ji, thank you. Namaste.
And now we move on to our next speaker, Simujit Singh. Simujit Singh is a motivational speaker with 1.3 million subscribers on YouTube and 50 million views of his of the videos. Incidentally, just straying a little from the point, I would request all our viewers to join in and tell their friends to join in. We already have more than 1,000 people watching this live streaming, and we would really want all of you to join back. Coming back to our next speaker, Simujit Singh, he has more than 14 years of international exposure in the space of motivational speaking, and he has received many awards, amongst them the Global Excellence Award in motivational speaking. Today, he is considered amongst the top 10 motivational speakers across the world. We welcome Simujit Singh, and we look forward to your address.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here. You see, for some reason, I was not able to make it to the earlier physical conventions which happened, but I'm happy, I'm glad that thanks to technology, I'm able to interact with all of the followers of this great conference that has been organized year after year. And I highly, I appreciate, I applaud the efforts, because just to have a meaningful dialogue around the subject of spirituality in itself, a meaningful dialogue with an open mind in a space where people are welcoming, accepting of each other's ideas, of the diversity that our beautiful country is, of this beautiful world, if we can openly listen to each other and have a meaningful dialogue along the very important subject of spirituality, that in itself is a great accomplishment. So my sincere respect and appreciation for the organizers, for the visionaries behind this, because as Aristotle said many thousands of years ago, if knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom, and then knowing each other is the beginning of peace, but it begins by knowing yourself. I love what Swamiji's concluding notes, as he was speaking before me, what his concluding notes were, quoting from Swami Vivekananda's speech in Chicago, that those who worship in temples are actually religious, but those who worship the fellow human being, they are gods themselves. So I will speak from a personal perspective about spirituality today, what my own spiritual practices and beliefs are, and hopefully you may be able to take something away from them. I think the first thing is to recognize your own divinity. If you were to ask me what spirituality means to me, I think the first thing that I will talk about is recognize your own divinity, that you have the power to reinvent your life, that you have the power to ease the suffering of your fellow human beings, that you have the power to display compassion and love for people that you don't even know, that you have the power to make scientific breakthroughs and do so many things. Recognize your own divinity. That's the first thing. And regardless of where you were born, regardless of the circumstances of your birth, regardless of your past, regardless of your failures, regardless of the embarrassments along the way. Recognize that at the core, you are a divine force. And if you recognize that, if you tap into that, you can literally change your life at any point of time. The other option is very dangerous. The other option is playing the victim. People who play the victim, they look at themselves as if they have little control over anything. All of this has happened to me. I am at the receiving end. Life has been unfair, and this is how my life is meant to be, and I will be a victim. And that's a very dangerous story to tell. A more powerful story to tell would be, I am a divine being, and by tapping into my divinity, by honoring my divinity, as Swamiji was saying, be mindful and take more deep breaths in, by recognizing that within me is a divine force which is connected to a higher force, I can change my life. I can reinvent myself. There is even now research happening in a field called epigenetics, where scientists believe that just by changing your beliefs, just by changing your thoughts, you can now determine which genes will become active in your body and which ones will stay dormant. For example, if everyone in your family has had a history of diabetes, so they probably might have passed on the gene to you as well. But your behavior, so this is what science of epigenetics says, that your behavior determines whether those genes will become active or whether they will stay dormant or whether they will stay asleep. If you're telling the victim story, which is, oh, everybody in my family has diabetes. I'm 45 now, so I should be having diabetes anytime now. In fact, I have told so many people about this story that if I don't get diabetes in the next 1 year, I will actually be very disappointed. To that extent, people can believe in the story of being a victim. And the other story is believing in your divinity, which is, you could say, I might have been, in my physical body, I might have been passed genes, behaviors, and thought patterns from my ancestors, from my parents. But I believe I'm a divine being. And by the power of my thought, by tapping into that power, I can create a brand new story. I do not have to suffer due to what is written in the genetic code. That is the gift we all have. Martin Luther King Jr., he said it beautifully. We are living in an era of guided missiles and misguided men and women. With technology so advanced that with precision we can hit another country with our missiles. And yet the vast majority of human beings are lost. And you talk to young people, there's suicidal tendencies. They're not happy with what they have. There is so much of material progress that we have made in this country over the last 10, 20 years. We have improved that there is millions of people have been added to the new middle class in India. Millions have been lifted out of poverty. We have a lot more abundance than we did 20, 30 years ago. We have more food grains produced in this country than we ever had before. We have more milk being produced than we ever had before, right? Yet, despite the rise in per capita incomes, we have not seen a corresponding rise in per capita happiness. And I think we need to reflect on that as a society. And as individuals, we need to begin by connecting with our divinity to understand that I am a divine being. I am no less than anyone else. If person A, B, or C, who appears religious, who appears evolved, quote unquote evolved, or who has certain practices to tap into a higher power, I also have access to the same. And this is what I believe in. If it is possible for another human being, it's possible for you too. And all you need to do is just start telling a brand new story. Start by looking within. Bulle Shah, the famous Sufi mystic, he said this, Pad pad ilm hazar kitaban. Pad pad ilm hazar kitaban. Kadi apne aap nu padhya nahi. Jaan jaan vadda hai mandir masiti. Kadi man apne vich vadhya nahi. ਐਵੇਂ ਲੜਦਾ ਸ਼ੈਤਾਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬੰਦਿਆ ਐਵੇਂ ਲੜਦਾ ਸ਼ੈਤਾਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬੰਦਿਆ ਕਦੀ ਨਫਸ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੜਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸ਼ੈਤਾਨ ਸੇ you fight with the Satan who you believe is an external force but you have not fought with the negative forces inside your head. And I think one of the biggest negative forces inside our head is the one that tells us that I am less than other human beings. or person XYZ was blessed with this capacity to do though. He's naturally talented, or he has this. No. If it's possible for another human being, it's possible for you too. So begin by recognizing your own divinity. Number two, begin and then move on to recognizing the divinity in other people too. The old Japanese proverb goes, there are many paths to the top of the mountain. There are many paths to the top of the mountain. Don't judge people for the paths they've chosen, or their external appearances, or their religious practices. Respect everyone, and in that atmosphere of respect and mutual understanding, we can create a brand new world. Elon Musk is looking for life on Mars, a different planet. He wants to create a settlement for humanity on Mars, which I believe is a great mission by all means. He's an entrepreneur, he's reaching to the edge of the space, he wants to create a human settlement on another planet called Mars. But at the same time, the ones who influence how life is lived on this planet, we also need to reflect. Can we do better here? Is there scope for improvement here? Do we need to improve the environment? Not just our mental environment, our physical environment also? You see, everybody who's into spirituality will ask you to take a deep breath in and inhale every now and then, which is a great thing. But if the air that I'm breathing in is becoming toxic, it'll become increasingly difficult for me to keep in touch with my divinity. If the food that we are producing becomes toxic and cancerous, then it'll become more difficult for me to be in touch with my divinity. So we need to reflect, every single one of us, because that's my third point. To give your best every day is also being spiritual. You don't need to be sitting in a place of organized religion, a mandir, a masjid, a gurdwara, or a church, in order to get in touch with your divinity. Whatever your chosen profession is today, if you are able to give absolutely your best, that is the service of the highest order. That's written in the Bhagavad Gita. That's what's written in the Guru Granth Sahib. In fact, in Sikhism, the three founding principles, the three main guiding principles are, number one, kirt karo. Kirt means hard work. Work hard. That's one of our founding philosophical principles in Sikhism. Kirt karo. Number two is naam japo. Meditate. Meditate on the Lord's name. And number three is vand chako, which means share what you have. I think even if one follows just these three principles, that you're able to inculcate the desire of service to your fellow human being, that you're able to meditate on the Lord's name, and then you're able to share your gifts. That's a wonderful philosophy right there. So to be able to give your best every day to whatever that you're doing, are you doing justice to the opportunity that you have today or not? That is spirituality. If you're a doctor, are you giving the best treatment possible to your patients or not? That is spirituality. If you're a teacher, are you giving the best life education to the children in your classrooms or not? That is spirituality. If you're a street sweeper, are you sweeping the streets like a painter is painting the painting or not? That is spirituality. मैं कुछ पंक्तियां हिंदी में यहाँ कहना चाहूँगा. ये मैं आज सुबह ही मेडिटेशन में इमर्ज हुई कि रणभूमि किसी व्यक्ति की क्या है ये हम तय नहीं कर सकते. किसी की रणभूमि बॉर्डर पर है, किसी की रणभूमि बिजनेस वर्ल्ड में है, किसी की रणभूमि स्पोर्ट्स में है, तो किसी की रणभूमि पॉलिटिक्स में है. वी डू नॉट चूज अवर बैटल ग्राउंड्स. वी गेट टू चूज हाउ वी फाइट द बैटल. रणभूमि क्या होगी हमारी, ये हम तय नहीं कर सकते. हम जंग किस तरह से लड़ेंगे, ये हम तय कर सकते हैं. Through this, our character is reflected, and through this, we get in touch with the divine by creating a balance between connection with the divine and also connection and service to your fellow human beings. If you ever visit the Golden Temple, you will find, perhaps if you observe carefully, you will see something very interesting. We have two Nishan Sahibs. Nishan Sahib is the tall pole with the Kesari flag on it. That is an indication of a holy place of worship. So in the Golden Temple, you will see two Nishan Sahibs. And one is slightly higher than the other. So I once asked Granthi ji what these two Nishan Sahibs stand for. And he said they stand for the philosophy of the sixth Sikh Guru, Shri Har Gobind Sahib Ji, who laid the foundation of this principle called Miri and Piri. One Nishan Sahib is a little bit taller than the others. So Miri and Piri. Miri hai governance. Amir is the one who is doing the very best in the worldly affairs. The Pir is the one who is the spiritual being, the Sufi being. So both have to be inculcated with us. But they place, the one Nishan Sahib is a little bit taller than the others because the Piri is higher than the Miri. Our spiritual duties are higher than our worldly duties, but that does not mean we escape our worldly duties. Not all of us will get a chance to probably travel to the Himalayas and sit in silence and meditate. But all of us do have some responsibilities. And whatever we are doing, if we are able to fulfill those, lift your fellow human beings, bring a smile to someone's face, put some energy, hope, and enthusiasm in someone who has lost hope. You are exercising your divine power when you're doing that. Think about that. To practice gratitude is to be spiritual. That's what spirituality means to me. Are you thankful for what you have today or not? Those little things. So it was a short talk. I welcome questions from the audience, Madhumita ji. But before we do that, I just spoke on what spirituality means to me on a day-to-day basis. I'm no spiritual master, but I do know this. But we are all divine beings. If we respect our divinity and that of our fellow human beings, with respect and an open mind, you see, parachutes and human minds, they only function when they're open. So if we open our mind to a different point of view, so two things before we open for questions. Number one is this. Can we have a friend who's from a different religion? This thing will go a long way in promoting world peace and harmony. Can you have a friend, if not a best friend, just a friend who's from another religion? In your friend circle, if there is one person, one or two people from different religions, that will create compassion and understanding, because we human beings, we are afraid of what we do not understand. So if we do not understand the religious practices or beliefs or faiths of other people, we misunderstand them. Just like little kids misunderstand darkness. Darkness, they create all these imaginary creatures in darkness. And if it's dark outside, that means there is something dangerous. No. As they grow up, they realize, no, it's just dark. I just need to switch on the light. And the same way, we need to switch on the light. And the darkness of our mind will go away by understanding. Read the scriptures of other religions. Have a friend from other religions. Listen to them, participate in their festivals, and remove these divisions from your mind. I think this is the best service we can do to the world, is remove the divisions from your mind. Interesting incident comes to my mind. We have a friend who usually brings in calendars towards the end of the year. Old-fashioned tradition. I mean, we don't use calendars so much anymore, but they distribute calendars towards the end of every year. So they have different printouts of different gods on them. So he said, oh, your calendar is delayed this year. I said, why? I just jokingly asked him why. He said, no, because I did not have enough calendars with the faces of the Sikh gurus printed on them. And I said, well, who told you that it makes a difference to me? I respect all religions. If you were to give me a calendar with Mar Saraswati on it, or Mahalakshmi on it, or Bhagwan Krishna on it, or Guru Nanak Dev Ji on it, it would not make a difference. But, I didn't say that to him, but this is the thought that crossed my mind. He's probably looking at the situation from that perspective, because that's how he's thinking. Remove the divisions from your mind. Old Zen story goes, there were these two Buddhist monks who were just about to cross a river. And they saw a woman who was drowning in the river, almost drowning, shouting for help. And both of them were strong, able-bodied men. Both of them knew swimming well. But these Buddhist monks had a vow, that the vow was they would never touch a woman. But here was a situation that a fellow human being was drowning. So one of the monks, he extended his hand to the woman and pulled her out of the water and carried her on his back to the other end and saved her life. And towards the end, when he put her off his back, they said thank you to each other and they moved on. Both the monks walked in silence for quite some time, until one of the monks, He couldn't hold this question inside his mind. And he said, brother, what did you do? You just broke your vow. And your vow was that I will never ever touch a woman. You just touched a woman, carried her on your back for 20 minutes. Well, he said to his fellow monk, he said, listen, I put her back, I put her down almost 30 minutes ago. It is you who is still carrying her in your mind. It is you who is still carrying her in your mind. We need to remove the divisions, the misunderstandings from our mind. And that is when we can create a beautiful world for us and our children. And when it comes to children, parents, if you're watching, be mindful of what you plant. If you plant hatred, you will sow hatred. And I see we are living in the times where so much hatred, whether it's on WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups, so much hatred can be floating around. If our young minds catch these hatred for other religions and other people with different beliefs, we will live in a world that'll be a very dangerous place to be in. We need to plant the seeds of understanding. So, Madhumita ji, as we can take questions, I just wanted to read out this little poem by a poet named Baba Nazmi, a Punjabi poet, and I'll do my best to translate it as well later on. But a lot of the things will be lost in translation, but I must read it out nevertheless. Punjabi में है, but मैं translate करूँगा. मस्जिद मेरी तू क्यों ढावें, मैं क्यों तोड़ा मंदिर नूं. मस्जिद मेरी तू क्यों ढावें, मैं क्यों तोड़ा मंदिर नूं. आजा बह के दोवें पड़िए एक दूजे दे अंदर नूं. Why should you destroy my mosque and why should I break your temple? Let's both sit down and read each other's minds. मस्जिद मेरी तू क्यों ढावें, मैं क्यों तोड़ा मंदिर नूं. आजा बह के दोवें पड़िए एक दूजे दे अंदर नूं. सदियां वांगू अज भी कुछ नहीं जाना मंदिर मस्जिद दा. लहू ते तेरा मेरा लगना तेरे मेरे खंजर नूं. Next line he says, like centuries, the people who run the masjid and the mandir, they will not lose anything. The blood on the daggers will be your blood and my blood. Rab kare tu mandir wangu vekhe meri masjid no. May the Almighty bless you with a vision where you look at my masjid as your temple. Rab kare tu mandir wangu vekhe meri masjid no. Ram kare main masjid wangu vekha tere mandir no. Tu bismillah pad ke mainu nanak da prasad fada. तू बिस्मिल्ला पढ़ के मैनू नानक दा प्रसाद फड़ा. मैं नानक दी बाणी पढ़ के दियां हुसैनी लंगर नू. साडे सिंगा फसदिया रहना. He says we will continue getting into fights. Saade singa and why? He explains in the next line. Saade singa fasdaya rehna khurli tendi rehni hai jinna chikar nath na pai nafrat wale dangar no. So he's creating a village scene where, you know, when the two bulls they fight and they lock their horns and they destroy everything. And he says he's comparing who are these two bulls? That is hatred and misunderstanding. ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਫਸਦਿਆਂ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਖੁਰਲੀ ਢੈਂਦੀ ਰਹਿਣੀ ਹੈ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਕਰ ਨੱਥ ਨਾ ਪਾਈ ਨਫ਼ਰਤ ਵਾਲੇ ਡੰਗਰ ਨੂੰ. ਨਫ਼ਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਨੱਥ ਪਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਹੈ. We need to control hatred in the society, and that can be done only by two things, the two things that I started with. Recognize your own divinity and recognize the divinity in those around you. And even they might look different, talk different, eat different, worship a different God. Still, when we strip away all these worldly things, at the core we'll find we are all one. This oneness is what we need to tap into.
That was beautiful. And it's so important. The main issue that you addressed is that the kind of homogeneity that is being imposed upon us by the superpowers, by political forces, that is something we have to resist. And we have to sort of advance inclusiveness because that is so important. There is one question that I would that we had received from our viewers. Incidentally, more than 3,000 people have been watching this, and right now online we have more than 1,000 viewers. But already, viewers come and go, and there has been more than 3,000 people. So one of the questions that we received is that everything is now interpreted or analyzed in the context of the pandemic, in the present scenario. So how can spirituality be defined or placed in this present scenario, in the space of the pandemic?
The pandemic has pushed us towards oneness. Look at this technology right now. I would need to travel for 1.5 days to be in a conference room to be with you earlier. I just had to move from the other room to the studio to speak to you now. The pandemic has pushed us towards oneness. I think it's maybe a divine, harsh wake-up call from the divine to wake up humanity. Do you know, I live in Jalandhar, Madhumita ji, and the Himalayas, Himachal is not too far from where we live. And what they say is 100 years ago, the air was so clean that we could see the mountains from here. And during the lockdowns was after 100 years.
A view of the mountains.
Absolutely. That it was after 100 years when humanity paused, nature flourished. The pandemic was a wake-up call for us humans. And look at this, the unpredictability. So many people were hanging on to so many things, superfluous things. And all of that just vanished during this time. I think it's a wake-up call for us to realize there is nothing more important than connection with the divine, connection with your loved ones, leading the life of your dreams, serving other people, right? When you lead the life of your dreams, when you achieve your highest potential, you are serving God. Mahatma Gandhi, he said this, he said, one who does less than what he can is a thief. So if I'm a doctor, who can do an excellent heart surgery, but I do an average heart surgery because I want to do 5 more, I'm stealing and God is watching. So my commitment, I'm first answerable to my own self. Be answerable to your own self. That's what the pandemic is teaching us. And then, you know what, another beautiful aspect that came forward during the pandemic was the best and the worst of human nature. The best of human nature came forward when people were selflessly serving others, with oxygen lungers, or people were opening the doors of their homes for strangers. They're doing so much for absolute strangers. People were connecting out on the streets who'd never known each other before, were now putting their lives at risk for each other. Think about that. It brought out the best in us. It also brought out the worst in us. Where ambulance drivers were charging 50,000 rupees to take a patient to the hospital. Where people who had the drugs available were hoarding the drugs and selling them for higher prices. Which means what? That this whole concept of heaven and hell is not an external concept, it's here. It is here. For somebody who did not have 50,000 rupees, if they were charged for an ambulance for 50,000 rupees, that person witnessed hell here on planet Earth. And for someone who could not get access to an oxygen cylinder, got an oxygen cylinder from an absolute stranger, he witnessed heaven right here. Heaven and hell are here. That's what the pandemic taught us. And then thanks to technology, it brought us all closer together. It's how we use it now. And that will depend upon the leaders of our society, not just political leaders. It's teachers, it's educators, it's spiritual leaders, it's influencers. It is our role models that we look up to. It's our movie stars. It is our songwriters. Every section of society, what are we propagating especially to our young ones, because they'll be the torchbearers in a few years from now. The ones who are in their 20s at the moment, will be in leadership positions 10 years from now. They will be running companies, countries, homes and schools and colleges. If they are planted with the right message, we will flourish as a planet together. So I think the top priority should be nurturing the young minds, because for some of us, the damage has already happened to our brains and it's too late to change that. But I'm optimistic. I don't lose hope. But the most fertile ground is the young ones. And that's where we need to put in more efforts.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We really need to hold on to the lessons that we have learned from the pandemic. Thank you once again. It was wonderful listening to you.
Thank you. Namaskar, Sat Shri Akal, Assalamu Alaikum, and Jai Hind.
So now we move on to our next speaker, who is once again a very, very distinguished personality in the world of filmmaking and cultural events and writing. Bhuvan Lal. Bhuvan Lal ji is a filmmaker and he's an international entrepreneur, author of several books. And in fact, he has done a lot for Indian culture, heritage, filmmaking by bringing the world to subjects which are intrinsically Indian. He is also a great author, and he has been the biographer of Subhash Chandra Bose ji, and he has also, in fact, last year during the pandemic, he had started this very inspirational story about her Dayalji. Dr. Lal has finished his first novel, which is in a different genre altogether. It is a spy novel, I believe, a very, very thrilling, book. And he is deeply interested in Indian spirituality. So, Bhuvan Lalji, we welcome you to our 14th World Confluence, and we are eagerly waiting to hear.
Thank you, Madhumataji. Thank you very much. It's an honor and a rare privilege to be participating in this event for Universal Spirituality and Humanity Foundation. I have chosen to speak about the cinematic arts and the spiritual world. It's a completely personal journey. The world of cinema, 100 years ago, invented and brought before the entire humanity an experience that was unique. It had never happened before. You could see a painting, you could appreciate a piece of music, you could go and watch a drama, you could look at a variety of costumes individually. But once you are in a cinematic moment, you're locked in a room, a filmmaker is speaking directly to you from a wide screen in front of you, and it is dark all around you. So this one-on-one experience brings a person absolutely in front of himself or herself and faces the reality of the world as displayed by somebody else's experiences. The world of cinema is unique because across the world we speak multiple languages, but the language of cinema is one. We can watch cinema anywhere in the world and see the imagery and the performances and connect with people who are not from our residential area, our state, our city, our country, or even our continent. The world of cinema brings you up close and personal to the rest of humanity. Sometimes the language is difficult to understand, so in a non-verbal manner, images and sounds tell a story. It elevates you individually. There are several examples of such films. Heartwarming moments in which you feel from the experiences of others how you would have felt if you had been in that situation yourself. Most importantly, global spirituality benefits a lot from the cinematic experience. I started my journey to make a film on the life of Buddha after the events of September 9/11. On September 11th, when the world was crashing around me, and we were experiencing a global disorder, I suddenly realized we needed a different voice on earth, a different thought on earth, a different mindset on earth as the human family. And I embarked upon a journey to make a film on the life of Buddha. The inspirational life of Gautam Buddha who lived 2,500 years ago in what is now modern day India, had to be told in the 21st century. I approached His Holiness the Dalai Lama to come to Los Angeles and make the announcement. In the year 2006, the office of the Dalai Lama confirmed a date. And they said he would be available to travel to the United States and would be visiting Los Angeles to make the announcement about the film on the Gautam Buddha. That date, incidentally, was also September 11th. On that day, I learned that Swami Vivekananda, when he spoke on Chicago and created a storm in America at the Parliament, World Parliament of Religion, that date was September 11th, 1893. So from September 11th, 1893 to September 11th, 2006, the world has been seeking answers. The world has lost in the war. The last century has been the most gruesome century. We have invented the atomic energy and atomic bombs. We've destroyed several places, countries, cities, and this had to stop. When India gets on the world stage, we bring to the world stage several thousand years of our heritage and spirituality. And Hollywood, as a film industry, also believes in the power of spirituality. It knows that if you go past the known genres of cinema and you make a deeper impact on people, you want to make a deeper impact on people, you have to have a spiritual take in cinema, in writing. I was not the first person trying to make a film on the life of Buddha in America. Several people have attempted to do that in the past. There has been an excellent film which has made India proud in the world of cinema, made by a British filmmaker called Lord Attenborough, a film called Gandhi, about the story of Mahatma Gandhi. It took him 20 years to make that film. It was an impossible project. Finally, when it came through, it thrilled the world. The film still has repeat viewing value, shelf life. Generation after generation have watched that film. It brings on screen an completely different experience from whatever else you have seen wherever else. And at one point of time, people didn't want to fund that film. Now it has become a multi-grosser. So there is a demand for this kind of cinema. Recently, there was a film made by Alfonso Cuarón called Gravity. Some of you may have seen it. A lot of people in the spiritual world felt it was the recreation of the age-old ancient Indian Buddhist practice of meditation called Vipassana, in which you see a character, an astronaut, locked in space, locked out of her space shuttle because of an accident, floating in mid-space, in the middle of life and death, almost giving up, and then getting visited by her guru in the film played by George Clooney, who explains to her the way out and gives her the power not to give up and brings her back to earth. If you watch that film, you will get the entire experience of a spiritual life, an out-of-body experience. It's an amazing journey. My journey with the film on the life of Buddha is over a decade old now. I have been working very hard on it. The script is almost done. We are going to make it very soon. The 2 years lost due to COVID-19 have come in the way, but we are moving forward. And in this post-pandemic world, I feel the greatest impact that our nation can make, India can make, is going to bring the world closer. Vasudev Kutumbakam. The world is one family. We discovered that thousands of years ago. The post-pandemic world has to come together. And cinema, Indian spirituality are going to be the answer for the challenges of the future. With that, Madhumita ji, I'd like to end my short talk. I appreciate the audience here. I appreciate the fact that you invited me. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much. In fact, what you had said about how the cinema, world cinema, for that matter, has influenced spirituality was very, very interesting. Talking about the film on Lord Buddha that you are making, would you, since you are an Indian filmmaker and you are completely steeped in the Indian traditions, obviously you would find nuances which, a person from Hollywood would miss because they have not been brought up in the cultural ethos, in the spiritual ethos that is inducted in every Indian child that is there. So would you say that your making would make a special impact on spirituality?
Not really, Madhumanti ji. I'm sorry, I called you Madhumita earlier. Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
an issue.
Yeah, Ms. Madhumanti. Cinema, as I said, is universal language. When you start telling people a story, they connect with the human being, the human element. And,
Right.
The story of Mahatma Gandhi, as shown in the film by Attenborough, connected the world to that man. They had no relationship to that period. They couldn't imagine what were the challenges of that time. But
Maybe
yet
they were unaware of the history. Maybe even they were unaware of the history.
So cinema is that vehicle that elevates a person from wherever they are to the level that, we all come together at a spiritual plane.
True.
I'm not making a religious film. I'm telling a story of a man, an individual who saw the world the way he saw it and tried to find solutions the way he thought were fit for his time. And I think some of those solutions are very valid today.
Absolutely.
The interconnectedness of humanity has to be brought together. Also, I'm looking at the rebirth, reincarnation, those issues. Those are also issues which people don't understand in the West, but that's also an area of great interest for me.
True. So absolutely, we really, really wish that such, such expressions in the cinematic language, in the domain of cinema, will surely influence the mindset of the people. And in its own way, it would also bring about a spiritual reconnection that needs to be stimulated from time to time. So thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing your experiences. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
And as you all know that people all over the world globally is participating in this confluence, and it is a 2-day confluence. So we do think that the same thing is going to happen tomorrow. Already more than 3,000 people have visited this confluence virtually, and the numbers are growing. But now we are going to travel once again virtually to Ladakh. Yes, in winter, Ladakh, you can imagine the scenario. And Venerable Bhikkhu Sangasena, who is the founder president of the Mahabodhi International Meditation Center, MIMC, the famous MIMC in Ladakh, is with us. We can see Bhikkhu, despite the inaccessibility of Ladakh at this time of the year, technology and virtual reality has made it possible that Bhikkhu is with the world at this moment. And he has worked tirelessly, selflessly, to put Buddha's teaching on loving kindness, on compassion, on helping others, on helping the marginalized into practice. So he has this 250 acres of moonlight desert that forms the impressive backdrop of the Devachan campus of Choglamsar in Ladakh. And there, you know, all the unfortunate beings are catered for. The destitute, the poor, the sick, they find a loving home, and women are taught self-reliance and many skills, education. There is scope for healthcare. Children are taken care of, they are educated, and all these activities have made MIMC one of the leading NGOs in the Himalayan region. So we have the founder president, Venerable Bhikkhu Sangasena, with us, and we would definitely like to hear your experiences in the realm of spirituality.
Thank you very much. Let me start with a short prayer. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami. May all the divinities from all the directions of the universe kindly look at us and shower their blessings upon all of us for the success of our coming together on these occasions of the World Conference. Our very dear and respected Dr. H.P. Kanoria, the chairman of the Universal Spirituality and Humanity Foundations, and all the members and colleagues who are associated with these great foundations, I would like to first bring the warmest greetings to all of you from the coldest land of Ladakh in the high Himalaya. It is a great honor and privilege for me to be part of this very important conference, that is 14 World Confluence of Humanity, Power and Spirituality. I like to thank the organizers for inviting me to be part of this program and to share a few words today. As you all know, the world is going through unprecedented challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemics, and humanity do not know what to do. The medical scientists, our leaders, have tried their level best to develop vaccines, medicines, and other things. However, we humanities are not able to overcome this unprecedented crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemics. And I believe such kind of conferences or discussions or brainstorming, bringing spirituality together with medical science, technology, and others, power of the world, will, if not bring an end to the COVID pandemics, but suddenly it will help the humanity to understand a lot of things, thereby at least reduce the COVID pandemics or reduce the fear and worries and uncertainty caused by the pandemics. Therefore, my profound appreciations to Dr. H.P. Kanoria and all his people for organizing this wonderful conference. Humanity is the greatest power. Spirituality, a great power. Technology is a great power. Science is a great power. Money, economy is a great power. But they are great power. This power can be used for destructive purpose and for constructive purpose, like nuclear energy. Nuclear energy can be used as a bomb, as humanity succeeded making more bombs out of nuclear energy than the positive purpose. It is a great power. Now, if humanity do not know how to use this power, that will become Bhasmasura dance. It will finally kill ourselves. Therefore, it is very rightly, very wisely, the organizers have brought together humanity, power, and spirituality. Spirituality is the only one-sided positive power. There is no negative power in spirituality. If we understand, of course, if you misunderstand, spiritual power also can be misused. Therefore, it is very important to bring together, spirituality and all the other powers in the world, technology, science, economy, education. Education is power. Knowledge is a power. Now, how we will know how to use this power positively? It's not possible to use without spirituality. If you can put the spirituality, in another word, spirituality means truth. Dharma. If the dharma or spirituality, pure dharmas, pure spirituality, if we put in the center, then there is no chance. No chance of misusing this great power for destructive purpose. If we can bring all this together, then the world will be different than what we are witnessing today. If we can bring together science and religions, must work hand in hand. Religion and science, materiality and spirituality, inner and outer values, head and hearts, physics and metaphysics, psychology and ecology, philosophy and technology, meditation and medication, all must work in balance, in harmony. Then this world will be very different than what we see today. Today, despite of the miraculous achievement by science and technology. Our fear of violence, of brutality, of aggressions, of hatred have not become less. On the contrary, it increased, proportionately increased. The reason is that we are only one-sided. Our focus is only material development, physical development, external development. We have neglected, we have forgotten, we have ignored the inner aspect of our life, the spirituality, the love and compassion, the peace. Therefore, the Albert Einstein, the father of this science, said, science without religion is lame, and religions without science is blind. Today, what we need, today, what the world needs, dear friends, is to bring this together. The scientists must meditate. The scientists should be spiritually scientists, and our spiritual leaders also should be little bit scientific. If religious people are little bit more scientific, then there is no scope, no chance to misuse religion, no chance to have blind faith. A lot of undesirable things also happen in the name of religion because of this blind faith. If religious masters, religious teachers, religious practitioners become little bit of scientific, then there is no room for blind faith. If the great scientists, the leaders, the economists, the technologists, if they meditate, then there is no chance for them to misuse the science of knowledge, technology for destructive purpose. If we can synthesize these two aspects, science and religion, inner and outer, east and west, we can make this world heaven. We can experience divine life here and now. We don't need to wait for heavenly life or heavenly world after death somewhere. Let me share with you the positive aspect of life. If we know Dharma, if we know how to use all the things available with love and compassion, we can experience divine life here. We can make this earth heaven. What more we want? We are blessed with the power to see all the colors, beautiful colors, the sunrise, the sunset, the flowers, the mountains, the oceans, the rivers. We are blessed with the power to see all these things. And we are blessed with the power to hear all the sounds and the music. And above all, we are blessed with the power to hear the divine teachings of all the enlightened masters. And we are blessed with the power to share the feelings of our hearts through our words, through our speech or tongue. And we are blessed with the power to stand up and walk and reach wherever you want to go. And we are blessed with the power to create anything we want with our hands. And above all, we are blessed with the power to pray and meditate and have the God realization, truth realization, self-realization here and now. What more we want, dear friends? All are here. Heaven and hell is not a state of geographical things. We are the heaven, we are the hell. We are the God, we are the ghost. We are the divine, we are the devil, both half-half. Now, whatever more influence are there around us, we will be influenced by that, we will go in that direction. Unfortunately, in today's world, in the name of development, in the name of progress and prosperity, we are all encouraged to develop greed, run faster and faster, do more and more, think more and more, and get more and more. And we don't know for what. So we get this influence. That is why, despite of this earth like heaven, despite of the potentiality to experience divine life, we have made this world almost like a hell. We all have become like a ghost. The ghost and the devils are just the name to frighten the children, dear friends. The human beings who have gone astray from the righteous path and get indulged in greed, hatred, egotism, they are the actual ghost. Nobody, no ghost, no devil, no evil have committed so much crime as human beings have done. Who started the First World War? Who started the Second World War? Who made the atom bomb, nuclear bomb? No ghost, no devil. Human beings who have gone astray from the right path. Yes. See today, in the name of development, what not humanity have achieved? They have climbed and conquered the highest mountain of the world. They have landed on the moon. They've touched the bottom of the oceans. They have invented all kinds of machine, robots to wash our clothes, clean our floor, cook food for us, and carry us from one place to another place, higher than any birds, faster than any birds can fly. Yeah, so despite of all this achievement, those achievements, have they brought answers to a fundamental question? Peace, happiness, harmony, security? No. So why these things happen? We have focused too much on the external aspect of life, material aspect of life. Dear friend, we are not just material, bunch of some material things like a car or motorcycle. A motorcycle, a car, if you keep clean and neat, that's it. It doesn't require any more because it doesn't have atma, soul, heart, mind, emotion, feelings. We are not like machines. Human beings are more than the physical body. As you all, we need all the things available in the supermarket to keep the body, physical body, healthy and clean. We need spirituality. We need meditation. We need prayer to keep our hearts, the mind, pure, clean, and healthy. This is what is missing, this balance, inner and outer. If we can somehow bring this to, this balance, if we can bring this balance together, this will be wonderful. There cannot be more precious than human life, dear friends. This is this world is heaven. We can experience divine life here and now. So we all have to, dear friend, have a heavy responsibility to create this awareness, to bringing spirituality in the center of everything. Spirituality in the center of education. Unfortunately, modern education also It is job-oriented, information-oriented, outside-oriented, head-oriented. In modern education system, heart is missing, only head is involved. We have to bring this together, head and hearts. Otherwise, people will become very knowledgeable, and that knowledge itself will become Bhasmasura dance. Finally, it will kill ourselves. This is what happening. I hear the highest number of suicide, highest number of mental case, highest number of psychiatrists are required among the highest educated society in America and others developed educationally, technologically, economically developed society. So, yes, therefore, I do hope that spirituality must be put in the center of everything. How beautifully Satya Sai Baba said. He was a great educationist also. He said that modern education, without guided by spiritual values, not only useless, but positively dangerous, right? This is what we see. The attack on the World Trade Center, hijacking an aeroplane and hitting against the World Trade Center in New York, were not illiterate people, were not simple people from a village. They were highly educated. They were engineers. They did it. And all the crimes, if you see the biggest crimes, violence, wars, are committed by so-called educated people. So how come educated people commit such things? Because spirituality is missing. They don't understand the meaning of education. Therefore, I sincerely hope, and we all must work together. All the peace-loving people must come together to work together, raise our voice, the spirituality, universal spirituality, pure meditation, not Buddhist spirituality, not Hindu spirituality, not Indian spirituality or American or European, pure universal. We must raise above all this division. Out of our ignorance, we have divided humanity into pieces in the name of nationalism, in the name of religion, in the name of caste and creed. We must understand that fundamentally we are same, member of one family, the human family, the global family. Whether you are born in America, whether you're born in Asia or Europe, whether you're Buddhist, Muslims, Christians, Hindu, we are all born in a similar way. We're all growing in a similar way. And all of us will die one day. Nobody is going to live permanently here. And all of us, whether you are American, European, Asian, whether you are Buddhist, Muslim, Christian, Hindus, we all share the same planet. We all breathe the same air for our survival. We all drink the same water for our survival. We all live under one sun, one moon, one sky. And we have the same body and mind. Everybody have two eyes, one nose, 2 ears, one mouth, 2 hands, 2 legs. And one small heart somewhere here. Inside the heart also the same wish, the same desire. Wish and desire to live peacefully, happily, harmoniously. Wish to avoid all problems, suffering, fears, all kinds of problems. So where is the difference, my dears? No difference. We must understand, until and unless we understand this one, that we are not strangers to each other, we are not enemy to each other. We are brothers and sisters. We are born in this world to live in peace. We are born in this world to live in love. We are born in this world to help each other, loving and serving, caring and sharing with each other, praying together, meditating together, serving, helping each other together. If we understand this one, if we can overcome those differences, what more? This world will be more beautiful than heaven, dear friends. We will be more beautiful than any gods or goddess. Sometimes back, people used to believe moon is the abode of God. Now human being managed to reach there. They didn't find a single flower. They had to carry oxygen and food from here. This earth is 1,000 times more beautiful than the moon. So let us not waste our time looking for another heavenly world. Let us not wait for the next life to experience divine life. Change our attitude, need to change. Our attitude towards the world, towards the other human beings need to change. You know, all religion are like, different religions are like different flowers. The color of the flowers may be different. The shape of the flowers may be different, but they are all flower contributing to beauty. Yes. When I go to flower market, when I buy rose flower, I have every right to choose which flower I would like to buy. But when I choose one particular flower, I have no right to condemn other flowers. I can't say other flowers are no flowers. This is the only flower, the most beautiful flower. The next person coming behind me may like another flower. Thus, we need to change our attitude towards all religion. All religions are like different flowers. We must overcome the childish attitude. My religion is better than other religion. My God is better than other gods. My God knows more than other gods. My guru better than other guru. My guru knows more than other gurus. And he have nothing to say, my guru is more handsome than other gurus. We must overcome all these childish. Without understanding and overcoming these differences, we can't expect world peace, unity, harmony. So, dear friends, my philosophy is very simple. I don't like to talk too much about heaven and hell. People who comes to me, I put a condition from the beginning. Please put heaven and hell aside. Please put previous life and next life aside. And put your high philosophical ideas just aside. Without knowing how to live today, from morning to evening, we get indulged in discussing high philosophy, ideas, beliefs. I say these people are like three blind people are discussing about light. Yeah. So it is a discussion, debating which one came before. The egg came before or the chicken came before. One will say, no, chicken came before because the egg comes from chicken. The other say, no, the egg must have come because chicken comes from the egg. We should not get indulged in this kind of, impractical philosophical discussion. Most important thing for us to understand the art of living here and now. When you open your eyes in the morning, how to start the day and how to continue the day positively and constructively and creatively and innovatively, compassionately. Yeah, and how to end the day with love, compassion. Learn the art of living here and now. Not knowing how to live here and now, we want to know about next life. Not knowing how to live here on this earth, we want to know about heavenly world. waste of time, dear friends. Let us learn simple philosophy, meditative life, smiling life, friendly life, active, creative life here. And above all, we must understand the greed has no limit. Our life has a limit. We are here like visiting guests. We are here like a tourist guest. Sooner or later have to go. We don't understand. Out of greed, we keep on accumulating, and make our life, so miserable. So, I think it seems my time is finished. I could see little bit sign from our madam. Yeah. So it has been a great pleasure and honor for me to be part of this wonderful programs, conference. And I wish all of you great success for tomorrow. And hopefully one day you can all visit my place, Ladakh, Himalaya. We can have and send a strong message from the top of Himalayas to the world, from the higher mountains, no? Yes. So,
Before
dear
you
friends,
Before you leave, can we ask you a question? To Venerable Bhikkhu Sanghasena, our question is that as we all know that MIMC, Mahavodi International Meditation Center, it undertakes a lot of work, which is practically in the social sphere, like education, empowerment, skill development, extending medical facilities. Now, as you just mentioned, that education per se cannot always result in good deeds. You gave the example of the plane attacking the World Trade Center and how people who were, sort of education-wise, skill-wise, who were completely able people, they were engineers, they were pilots who had undertaken this monstrous work. So you said that education per se cannot always lead to good deeds. It must be tempered with spirituality. So our question is, how do you infuse spirituality in all the spheres of social activities that you perform, like imparting education, undertaking literacy programs, instilling empowerment amongst women and other disadvantaged groups? How do you do that?
Yes, the numerous spiritual and humanitarian services we have initiated in this campus in Ladakh. This in the center, there is a spirituality. Is this prayer of compassion, what we call prayer of compassion, is in the center of all our activities. All our activities are strongly guided by spiritual values, cultural values, religious values, human values, not something the Buddhist value. Big problem we have, trying to make spirituality or compassion like our compassion or Buddhist compassion. There's no such things. It is universal. Love is simply love with dispel hatred. Light is simply light with dispel darkness. We cannot say the Buddhist light, the Christian light, the Hindu light. Cannot say the Buddhist flower or Muslim flower, Hindu flower. Flower is simply flower which brings beauty and spread fragrance. So in our education system, we have meditation, regular meditation, and spirituality in practical way, not high philosophy. You know how I started all the numerous social welfare activities. As I was born in a traditional Buddhist family and ordained as a monk in traditional way, I also started teaching philosophy, renounce, samsara is Maya, samsara is dukh, suffering, renounce. I soon realized, yes, the high philosophical discussion of Buddha is good for only certain group of people, those who have roti, kabra, makan, and they want to now know something higher than just material things, higher than roti, kabra, makan. But those who still need the roti, kabra, makan, unko you cannot, you can't teach yoga and meditation to a hungry person.
True.
So I
They
realized,
need to survive first.
Yeah, best religion for the thirsty is water. The best religion for the hungry is food. The best religion for the sick is doctors, medicine, hospital, not high philosophical discussion. That will come later on. That is how
We
I
absolutely
started.
appreciate the practical interpretation of spirituality that you practice. It's wonderful. Yes, you were saying?
Yeah. So it is the spirituality, which brings color, beauty, and fragrance to human life. To me, having born as human being, if you miss spirituality, you miss human life. Yeah. Without spirituality, human life is like a flower tree, but without leaves, without flowers, without color, and without fragrance. And what kind of flower tree is that which has no flower, no color, no fragrance, no leaves? So therefore,
roti, kapra, and makan, the fourth component has to be spirituality, along with roti, kapra, makan, to make life complete. Would you say
exactly. That is how my campus has come. First, I started teaching philosophy, but then I realized this is good for you and me. Is good. Those who have roti, kabra, makan. For the poor children in remote villages, that high philosophy, yoga was not priority. Their priority is to have a hostel and school where they can go to school and learn something and learn to stand on their own feet, For the homeless people, elderly homeless people, their top priority was to have a shelter where they can be protected from the severe cold and the heat, That is how all these projects had come up. And yes, they're all different parts of the life. We need to bring them together, holistically together.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful listening to you and wonderful finding that you are in the here and the now, practically implementing all the religious teachings that you have learned and grown up with as a practicing Buddhist. Thank you so much, sir, for giving us your time.
Yeah, can I conclude with this short prayer?
Absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
Please go ahead.
This prayer we call it prayer of compassion. It is in the center of all our activities. So it goes like this. Yeah.
Please send it by mail.
Right, we will do it. Thank you. It says, "Oh Lord Buddha." Buddha means not Buddhist Buddha. It's you can say Lord, just Lord. "Oh Lord, the embodiment of compassion and wisdom, please accept our most reverential salutation at your lotus feet, and kindly bestow your blessings on us to remain always a source of happiness for those who are unhappy, a source of water for the thirsty, a source of food for the hungry, a source of healing for those who are ill, a source of light for those in darkness, a source of companionship for those who are in lonely, a source of protection for those without protection, a source of help and friendship for all in need, a source of crutches to the broken limbs, a source of parental love and care for the orphans, a source of shelter to the homeless, a source of asylum for those who have no safe place, a source of warmth of real love and compassion to those abandoned in the coldness of war and hatred. May the Buddha be in our head. May the Dharma be in our hearts. May the Sangha be in our side to protect and guide us always. May all enjoy real peace, real happiness, real harmony.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Once
much.
again-
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. And today we are going to conclude our confluence. I would once again like to request all of you to join in. Tomorrow also we start at the same time at 3 o'clock, and do join in. Today we have had wonderful response. And for the concluding address, I would be requesting a person who has always been the practical face of the World Confluence, who has executed all the practical logistics which had made the confluence so very popular, and it has continued till the 14th edition this year. Dr. Rahul Vadi.
Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, my young friends who are tuned in today, listening to this spiritual confluence, our 14th World Confluence of Humanity, Power and Spirituality. So as we come close to the conclusion, the first day session of the 14th World Confluence of Humanity, Power and Spirituality, I do realize that now we are firmly set on our path to serve humanity, and through this means to achieve God's purpose. The journey that began with a marathon 5-day session in 2010 is proving more than fruitful, spreading on its way the message of hope and goodwill. I recall with much satisfaction the background and excitement of the first confluence when our chairman, Dr. H.P. Kanoria, unfolded his vision of peace, harmony, love, righteousness, and caring for Mother Earth, while having faith in one's religion and respect for other religions, thereby awakening the inner power and igniting selfless dedication for common welfare and growth. As we move ahead, it is my privilege to inform that this confluence has attracted over 1,000 speakers so far from different faiths and vocations, from different parts of the world, including humanists and illuminates, dignitaries and professionals, leaders and learned men. They all came and utilized the confluence platform to convey their thoughts on how to enrich the body, spirit, and the mind in its integrality, and to make life more meaningful and purposeful. So far from January 2010, over thousands of students have participated in the events, because we believe that the youth holds the future and it is they who will make a difference. We have approached over 40,000 schools in India and abroad, giving them an edifying theme on spirituality for an essay competition for which we have received a hearty response. And this was classified according to different age groups. Our effort has been to inspire the youth to tread an ascending path which leads them from the human to the divine. We believe that true humanness consists in cultivating a spirit that gets reflected in intellectuality, morality, and humility. These impulses act as motivations and deepen our relationship with fellow human beings. Hence, in every conference, we organize a debate with a focused theme on spirituality, where several schools have participated. We have also initiated sit and draw competitions where hundreds of specially disabled children also have taken part to bring out their creativity and carry on their journey with a smile. We are thankful to the reputed artists who act as judges and spend their day with them. Thousands of students have become members of this confluence who are regularly updated on spiritual articles, inspiring them to serve humanity. We have also been able to make this conference accessible to a wider audience by documenting the proceedings of all the events. The inspiring messages from all the distinguished speakers have been circulated to thousands of people all over the world. It is a matter of great pride and honor to mention that our mission and vision have been greatly applauded in India and worldwide. And we had the presence of the presidents of India, the former heads of state of various countries. We have had acknowledgement, compliments from the Secretary General of the UN, the Dalai Lama, and much, much more. To me, Spirituality is not about remaining satisfied in what we do. I've been listening to all the speakers, and I think that there is a lot of things in common which I learned today, because the world does not suffer because of violence. It suffers because of silence. It is very easy to talk about lofty philosophy. It is harder to be there and live our lives accordingly. Some people live by the principle, life is like an ice cream, enjoy it before it melts. I say, life is like a candle, bring light to others before it melts. Serve others, be of service to humanity. Both melt, the candle and the ice cream. Spirituality means the journey between being an ice cream and being a candle. Like the oxygen mask on a plane, if a mask is not tightened, we cannot help the person next to you. Hence, the last principle is to be selfishly selfless, earn a lot, have a lot of resources so that you can serve, have love, have position, have money, and share. That is what I call spirituality. I would like to sincerely thank all our distinguished speakers for their valuable time and the inspiring deliverance, I think, which has reached out to so many people all across the world today, and to strengthen, and especially to strengthen our resolve to march ahead with the flag of harmony, peace, humanity, universal spirituality, and to create a spiritual world full of happiness. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for today's conference, for all of you being there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Beautiful imagery that Dr. Verma used. The ice cream was particularly something I could relate to, and of course, the candle. Thank you so much. And tomorrow, we are going to start at the same time, but there are certain things that we would sort of like to mention at this point. One very important thing is that right now we can see that there are about 1,300 plus live viewers here. And I would tell all the viewers, I would request all the viewers that go to the auditorium section. And from there, you can download an e-certificate. Now, this facility would be there tomorrow also. So whoever, have been attending this, have, sort of clicked the link and have joined this conference, who are attending it throughout or, for part of the time, you can go to the auditorium section and download an e-certificate. Now, throughout this confluence, the first day of the confluence, we have had almost 4,000 viewers, 46% of whom have been women. So that we find is very, very pleasant news indeed. So tomorrow we are going to start at 3 sharp. Do join us, do be with us, and let us move towards the path of spirituality, of a more evolved us. See you tomorrow at 3. Have a wonderful evening. Done.